forehead. All right, starting off the dungeon here, Method EU and No Girls Allowed. No Girls Allowed, of course, being the 4th ranked team as of the last cup. So they certainly had quite a good performance. Method EU, they ended up winning the cup last time, but a bit of shaky play. Remember, they had some wipes in Shrine of the Storm. It was a bit weird, and they ended up really just losing to Abra, throwing against themselves. So it looks like Method EU has gotten past that funk this week and had a very dominant first series. We'll see what they can do here as they pop Bloodlust against a rather massive pull that has been line of sighted around the corner by now. No Girls Allowed looking to, they're prepping their own pull as Trell leaps in and grabs everything, including one of the 2 Enforcer packs that needs to be killed in order to spawn Sky Captain Craig, and both teams go to town. Not sure I'm liking this no line of sight here, Nagura, though, because it's leaving the crack shots in the back. And disaster here already for Method EU. Frag going down, now going down. They already have to commit their battle res. They get it up on now, but nothing here has aggro on the tank right now. You can only get a taunt in every 8 seconds and a reset with Heroic Lead, so somebody else is going to bite the dust if they get anywhere near them.
Now just struggling so much. Now is the first one to go down, and Frag just followed suit because he did have the most aggro with the huge burst AoE that's coming out of this Unholy DK. Now still struggling. You can see just how low he is as he leaps away, hoping to stay alive. You can also see the Sanguine just healing them up so much because of the tank dying, right? You just lose all of this control. Everyone, all the mobs just, they spread out. They're not stacked up anymore, so none of your AoE really helps anymore with the Ring of Peace, with the Typhoon and the Vortex. And now all of a sudden, all of the mobs heal with the Sanguine. So definitely huge mistake here by Method EU, taking way longer in this pull than they're supposed to. But look at the percentage. Look how much trash they pulled here. Once they finish this off, this is 24-25%. That's an insane percentage they gain out of this very particular pull. While No Girls Allowed did do it a lot cleaner, but they only got 13%.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. They have 2 deaths, but not even just the deaths on the board. They now don't have a battle res against Sky Captain Craig, which has one-shot capability and an 18 Tyrannical. So this could be pretty scary here. You already saw him chunk Frag just for 40% HP at the start of this phase here. A lot of attention is going to be needed from Xaylia, who we know loves to play very aggressively as a healer, but will not really be able to do so on this boss. No Girls Allowed has actually combined trash with the boss and Bloodlust here. I don't think they have enough trash there to actually catch the 27%. Good bump there coming out of Undead right now just to make sure that none of that Sanguine heals the boss. But yeah, Nagura, that was quite sloppy from Method and A early on. And not just that, but out of desperation, Xaylia threw down the Vortex to grab the ads away from now after he got res, but then the Vortex was on top of a Sanguine, and so just not the Method you love to see, but it looks like they've gotten back on their feet as Sky Captain Craig is now at 62% for them.
Yeah, one more thing to mention is that in the past we had most of the dungeons just stay tyrannical throughout the whole season, same with 45. The other affixes would change, but the main affix tyrannical and 45 would stay to make practice a little bit easier. But this time around we switched it up a little bit, and Freehold was 45 the last time around, and now it is tyrannical. So that means that those kind of strategies that they had, like the base strategies that they have for these dungeons, don't work anymore, right? Because tyrannical and 45 changes your strategy up a lot. Method EU adapting kind of and having this huge kind of pull that they did at the very start, which would not be possible on 45. They still struggled with it, but it's interesting to see that they managed to change up their strategy completely. We see this boss on tyrannical, definitely difficult. You see the shots you see Jinx just dropping to 10% HP from one shot, so they gotta watch out here to make sure all of the damage dealers are on 100% HP at all times when the shot is coming out.
Xaylia popping Solar Rasmir is getting down to 9% health from one of those shots. So I guess what their gear level doesn't really have one-shot potential. We do see that issue on live and some of the higher keys on Tyrannical. This boss and Eudora, which we commented on before the map, that is not present in this week's rotation on the tournament realm for these teams. Definitely has one-shot potential, but the teams have just enough health to survive one of these Azurite's shots going in. Frag popping that AMS after the shot, unfortunately, so he actually missed that, so it really absorbed nothing in the end, but it did not finish him off, luckily for them. 27% still trash on the board for Method EU as there gets Sky Captain Craig in the single digits here. No Girls Allowed. You know, Method EU is known to have very high single target DPS prowess versus a lot of the other teams, and No Girls Allowed is keeping that gap the same the entire time. It barely changed. Like, they did not let Method EU pull ahead at all. So No Girls Allowed catching up quite quickly here. 6% on Sky Captain Craig. They're behind 10% on trash. Hopefully they make it up with a larger pull later, but you know, we still have 2 deaths on the board, but it's probably still less than 10% of how far ahead they are. 10 seconds, excuse me, of how ahead they are, Dangura.
Yeah, so they're actually going down here at the very end for No Girls Allowed. Not a problem. They can finish off the boss after all, but still 5 seconds on the board. Thankfully, he can release right away, and he will just respawn on the first boss as well. Now, one more thing to notice, we've been talking about Method U and why are they so good and why they keep on the top all the time, and it's those kind of small things where one little thing on a change of strategy will just save them a couple of seconds, and if you add it all up, it will just save you a lot of time compared to other teams. But one other thing I want to mention is that they're really good at recovering if there are mistakes. Some other teams, they might be like, oh, tank is dead, now we had a full team wipe, or we need the druid to go off, Shadow Meld, rest everybody. But we saw now go down here, which was a really big pull, and they somehow managed to recover. Of course, it wasn't pretty, right? We saw the Vortex, Sanguine healing them up, Frag going down as well. But they ended up finishing off the pull and not having a full team wipe. So they didn't lose as much time as they could have. So that's one thing to note as well, as they move on and both of the teams doing an insane pull here with some of those trash packs together.
Yeah, they're going to have to be really careful with the Blind Rage and the Shattering Bellows in here. I mean, getting interrupts and proper CC down on those, otherwise somebody else in the group is going to die rather than just the tank. Huge amounts of damage coming out of these Unholy DKs. Frag topping up at around 900k and obviously starting to drown out just a bit as they finish off the rest of the pack. No Girls Allowed. Sistar doing an immense amount of damage as well, and Undead actually doing an impressive amount. He peaked at around 300k compared to Mira's on the side of Method EU, who has now pulled the second boss, consisting of Captain Rule and Captain Jolly. So no Eudora present, which is quite fortunate for the team, but they're going to have to play very well around the brew buffs that come down that we see frequently every week. Of course, either the haste or the crit buff going on the players, and making sure that you put the bosses in the bad brew buff. It is a huge dot, and you certainly want that extra damage on the bosses, excuse me, because of the high tyrannical. Now taking a bit of damage there because I think the bosses hate the brew. Yeah.
So now I've got the bad brew, meaning there's a damage over time effect debuff on him, and it just did a lot of damage to him. That's why he drops a lot. Did manage to recover though. Mira's also getting hit by something. This is something we talked about before, right? We said if there's no Eudora, then people just play very aggressively, and they might get hit by one of those AoE abilities just because they want to play greedy and get that buff, right? They want that haste or that crit buff, and they might just soak one of those abilities, and that's why you see those the people drop so low. Now, one thing to note is that we don't have anything that is preventing you to pull trash on top here. We don't have bolstering or anything like that. But it is Sanguine, so you gotta be careful. If they want to do something like that, it probably should be either at the very end of the boss fight, or they have to be very careful when it comes to Sanguine.
Now, keep in mind, these teams do have to be very careful with where they're tanking the boss. It is a Void-heavy week yet again in this dungeon, and we do see a Void Emissary exactly like the previous cups in the corner there. So, fortunately for them, no Eudora that can proxy aggro any of the Rat Trapper pack on the side, but if they get hit by one of the barrel smashes, as you mentioned, Nigura, I could put them in range of that. Now, this combo is particularly irritating between Captain Jolly and Captain Raoul, because what happens is you get the Whirlwind Blade going down that the tank needs to absorb as you're getting the zone that you're trying to soak the buff from. So there's just a lot of denial while the players are trying to be greedy and get those buffs. Undead going down on the side of No Girls Allowed. Speaking of greedy, unfortunately for them, they do have the battle res though, and they get that up. Now neither team has a battle res available for about 2 minutes or a minute and a half or so now, as No Girls Allowed is looking to efficiently cleave down both bosses at the same time, while Method EU actually killed Captain Rule first to get rid of the barrel smash, and then Jolly. Actually really impressed to see No Girls Allowed. That was a really efficient cleave from them, and they almost beat or matched the boss time of Method EU. In fact, I think they did, because they pulled the boss a bit after Method EU.
Yeah, that was really impressive by No Girls Allowed. This whole dungeon, they've been playing cleanly. I mean, we have 2 deaths on the board, but both deaths didn't really cost him a lot of time at all. One was at the very last second of the boss fight, so they didn't need to rest, and one was in the middle of this boss fight. So very impressive so far by No Girls Allowed. They also showed in the first series that they played that they're up there, right? They definitely have the strategies, they have the execution, so they're really matching up to Method EU here. So I mean, in the end, they're still 10% behind in trash, just because Method EU did this bigger pull at the very start of the dungeon, and they also pulled a little bit of trash on top of the of Jolly. So that's the difference between them right now. You can see Method EU pulling some more trash on top of Ludwig, while No Girls Allowed not dealing with Ludwig yet. They just finish off some trash before they go.
Blind range, unfortunately, very slowed blind range from Method EU right now, just bathes a bit in that Sanguini Panini that goes down on the ground on top of Ludwig von Tortolen, which, of course, you do have to constantly kite around in circles. He's very slow. The reason for that is as the mobs are dying, Sanguine's going down. So the last thing you want is this very, very high health mob, even in a tyrannical environment, to get a tick of that Sanguini. No girls allowed here at 46%. You know, they're kind of matching pace to Method EU here, but because of that first pull at the beginning of the dungeon, they find themselves constantly 10 to 15% behind Trash for Method EU. So they need to do something quite extraordinary here in order to catch Method EU, because if they just keep pace at this point, they're going to lose the dungeon. Both teams have 2 deaths, so they have no advantage there. Battle Res, only 1 available for each team. Bloodlust timers coming up roughly the same, within a minute and a half of each other, so they only get 1 more left in the dungeon. So you're going to have to see something really aggressive coming out of No Girls Allowed to have any hopes of catching Method EU right now, who is looking to finish off this last emissary.
Yeah, it might be something, you know, in the last boss room, there's so much trash you can pull on top of the last boss if you want to be as greedy as possible, but it's Sanguine, right? So that's going to be a huge deal. So No Girls Allowed actually pulling
2 crushers?
2 crushers, which is something...
You scolded 1 crusher last time.
Yeah, 2 crushers on top of Ludwig, just, I don't know, it just seems so inefficient for melees in general. And they only have 1 rogue with increased melee range, right? Because there's so much area of denial they cast. You can just see the crashes they cast, an area around them, and they also throw rocks the whole time. So I'm not really sure if this is worth it.
The rocks are thrown at ranged, if I'm not mistaken, so Edelweiss just has to kind of kite around in a circle. But, I mean, Undat goes down. There's the danger that Naguro was talking about. They actually do have the battle res now. Immediately goes up from either Sistar or Edel. I'm not sure who got the res there, but they do have either one of them available. But on top of it, I mean, you're just seeing how they're playing. Sistar, look right now, it's Sistar. He has to back out of the AoE, and he's not doing anything right now. I mean, he's getting a bit of ranged attack in the whole time, but the fact that he's just even losing auto attacks, which is quite significant for a melee, that white damage coming in is just a loss. I mean, this is really inefficient. I totally agree with you. It's akin to pulling, you know, the 6 Peacekeepers in Motherlode that we've seen in the previous season. That just wasn't very efficient because teams ended up kiting in circles for 10 minutes. So No Girls Allowed. Bit of chunk damage here on Sistar as they hit 57% trash, looking to finally finish off this pull here as Method EU is already at 77% trash and looking to chew through Trothak, who has only 66% left.
Yeah, I think it was a huge advantage for Method EU when they pulled so much trash on top of Ludwig. It just saved them so much time. It was so efficient. Dealt with Ludwig, dealt with a lot of trash at the same time. While No Girls Allowed, they were dealing with some trash before they pulled Ludwig, and then they pulled the crashes on top of Ludwig, which is questionable at best. And now we saw the Crusher actually heal a little bit from the Sanguine here for No Girls Allowed side, so they definitely want to be more careful with that. Unfortunately, those Crushers, they cannot be CC'd in any way, so if they stand in a Sanguine and cast like a throw rock, then you can't just typhoon them out of it. So that's definitely a problem as well.
Trothak, 53% here for Method EU. No Girls Allowed still hasn't started on it. They're grabbing more trash, including yet another Crusher. So they really like their Crushers, or I suppose really hate them, which is why they're pulling them in order to kill them. But 61% trash on the board for them as Trothak ominously waits on the edge of the screen there from our observers. Edelweiss goes down, though, and they don't have a battle rest. Sistara goes down as well. They can release at the Council of Captains, but it's going to require Trell staying alive for quite a while and any residual damage going on Dilemma or Undead to not finish them off. Trell doing a good job here, but unfortunately, Shield Wall, Last Stand rather, bolstered Last Stand, might I add, is gone. Shield Wall is not available either, and Trell starting to go down. Fortunately, Edelweiss comes in to save the day and tries to stabilize the situation, but huge damage still going out on the group as Method EU is now to the remaining 30% on Trothak. It's still sitting at their, I think that's actually enough trash to finish off the rest of the dungeon if they do the cannon barrage properly on the Harlan.
They now actually engaged Trothak as well on No Girls Allowed side. Okay, they're just resetting it because they just didn't have enough space to kite around all those mobs while having Sanguine all over the floor. And you saw Trothak just standing there, just denying so much space as well because of his aggro range. So they decided to pull the boss, reset it, and finish off the rest of the mobs. But now, Method EU, they were pulling so much trash slowly into Trothak that it just seemed so efficient, right? I mean, they are on Trothak for quite a while now, but they got at least 10%, if not more, just from fighting Trothak and pulling mobs from all over the place on top of it. Of course, this requires very well management with the Sanguine on the floor, but I don't think Trothak healed at all, so they did a good job managing the Sanguine properly. We saw Ludwig heal a little bit, but not Trothak, so that's good on them because Tyrannical buffs Trothak. It does not actually buff Ludwig.
Yeah, Trophic is about to fall here. And I mean, you're absolutely right, Nigger. And just a lot of inefficiency here from No Girls Allowed. They did commit their Bloodlust. Both teams really had just one Bloodlust left. They decided to commit their Bloodlust to Trophic to kind of counter the fact that he's a very, well, frankly, he's a very unfriendly boss, period. Unfriendly for melee because of the Sharknado that he does that displaces you, but unfriendly to range as well because constantly the sharks are going out and you guys have to move all the time. So they're trying to counteract by some of the low boss uptime with that Bloodlust. But most teams don't like doing that because they want to complement with a complement, so to speak, where you have full uptime on the boss and can get full uptime out of that Bloodlust as well, which is it seems what Method EU is going to do here. They're 80% trash now, and it looks like they'll be starting on the last boss in a moment. Xaylia has one quick drink, or one quick eat, I suppose, one quick bite of that dirty fish feast on the ground, and there it is. Bloodlust goes up, trash is pulled, and Harlan is nowhere to be seen just yet.
They did it for Harlan. It is in there somewhere. You can see the Bloodlust being popped as well. Now, what they want to be really careful about is Sanguine, of course. So they want to make sure that as soon as they die, you get something like a Ring of Peace, you get a Typhoon, anything like that. Because once the boss is standing in Sanguine, it's going to be not as easy to pull him out of it. It just needs to be slowly moved out. There's no way of Typhooning the boss or a Ring of Peacing or just displaying it in any sort of way. So we see they did a pretty good job as everything was going down. Enforcer healing a little bit. And those Enforcers are pretty scary for the tank.
Yeah, you know, better them healing than Harlan, though.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. The Shattering Throw is quite irritating. You can see now constantly moving, not only for the Sanguine, but if you outrange the Shattering Toss from one of those Enforcers, that actually ends up failing the cast, and then he tries to run up to you and recast it again. So he's avoiding a lot of those Shattering Tosses so that it doesn't splash on the group in the middle. Xaylia finally moves just a bit out of the group in order to Typhoon, and then root one of the Grenadiers on the side and make sure that it does not get its splash damage on the group. Harlan Sweet now, 61% HP. They still have 11% trash, just because we are in a teaming environment which requires you to do more trash in the dungeon, and there's more trash present on top of it. So another pull coming in here on top of Harlan Sweet, and I think this is just going to be the ebb and flow of the rest of the dungeon for them. They're constantly going to grab trash on top of Harlan, cleave it down with the quadruple cannonball barrage as Harlan has entered his second phase. There it is, a lot of damage coming in, and then they're probably going to finish it off with one of the Ravagers on the side, I would assume.
Yeah, there was a pretty beautiful stack that they did there. Everyone standing on top of each other, and you can have almost three stacks of this of the artillery on the same spot. So you don't have to move immediately. You saw just how slowly they're moving. You can see it again right here. So they just wait until one spawns and just move slightly, make one step, just to make sure it's just. Oh, Xaylia actually going down. They do have one battle rest available. Thankfully, they have a DK, so they can get him back up, which Frag is going to do any second now. There we go. So Xaylia is back alive. They should be able to recover from this, but yeah, now they're out of battle rests.
A typical Method EU fashion, they have so many circumstances where they're almost about to fight. Something almost goes disastrously wrong, but they always just have some kind of out. In this case, they still have battle res available. Happens all the time to them, and they're just so well able to recover. We saw it at the beginning of the map too, with two of the members going down with the res. So they're so confident in their play. It's nice to see here as Harlan hits 30% now, meaning that we're taking increased damage, double damage on Harlan, and he deals 100% increased attack speed, which is not really a problem for the tank right now as they pull the remainder of the trash that they need, and they look to cleave it down with that cannonball barrage. But No Girls Allowed, more deaths on the board right now.
Yeah, so Method EU actually does have an Emissary of Tides on top here, so they want to be a little bit careful because there's no way of stunning or interrupting or seeing any form, but they did manage to pull it off with the friendly fire from the artillery here as they have the 100% trash now. Harlan Sweet about to go down, and they're going to go...
Those meanie bobinis in Twitter, but... 3 Demon Hunters! 3 Demon Hunters, let's do it! Okay, well, I guess reliance on darkness here from No Girls Allowed to counter the bursting stack. So triple Havoc Demon Hunter coming in here, plus a Brewmaster. So the only staple pick we see here is the Resto Druid because they need a battle rest. So that's a lot of purple in one area. I've never seen so many purple rogues stacked up on one side of the equation. Both teams, as usual, just chewing through the beginning pack here and then heading right over to the top left to the Triad area.
You know what the really good part is about having 3 purple rogues is that you can look at the damage meters and you can always tell who the best player is because it's the one who does the most damage, and you don't even have different classes this time around. So Dilemma, definitely the best Demon Hunter in No Girls Allowed, confirmed by me. And Method EU already on the first boss. They still have their Bloodlust ready, so I'm not completely sure if they want to maybe pull some trash on top and then use it then.
Yeah, both teams actually have their Bloodlust, and it looks like they're not pulling anything just yet. But we did see in some of the previous... there's the Bloodlust right now for Method EU. They did indeed pull Trash. Yeah, we can see it on the side of the Emissary of the Tides. I believe they wait for Selena to be done before being aggressive with the Trash, because just having the Trash on top of a 50% reduced healing aura is kind of rough. So... excuse me, both teams doing kind of the same thing here. Actually, not even the same thing. We're not seeing extra Trash pulled over from No Girls Allowed right now, but Method EU indeed has killed off another 3%. Probably will be slightly higher worth of Trash in just a moment here as they're getting ready to chew through Sister Briar's first phase and holding them accountable, essentially, is No Girls Allowed right on their tail with damage. But again, at Nigger, we're starting to see already in this dungeon the same kind of story unfold. Both teams keeping up with each other through raw progression in the dungeon, but Method EU just doing everything more efficiently. Hey, here's 3% Trash cleave on top of the boss. Here's another 2% here. Here's another 3% here. And that's how they end up pulling so far ahead always.
Yeah, we definitely see... I mean, No Girls Allowed didn't play bad the last dungeon, right? They seem to be doing well. They didn't have many mistakes. It's really just that they had their worst strategy. They were just less efficient, really. So that was the difference between those two teams, at least in Freehold. We'll see what happens here in Waycrest Manor. I mean, No Girls Allowed definitely have a plan going into this, because they're playing 3 Demon Hunters, so there must be a reason behind this. One thing Demon Hunters are really good at is resisting magic damage, right? They by default get less magic damage already, and then on top of that they also have Blur, a 30% damage reduction on a 1-minute cooldown, so that's just an insane defensive cooldowns that they have against magic damage in general.
Not to mention when they're in meta form, 4-minute cooldown, they're just indestructible because they're leeches. I mean, just ridiculous that you just can't kill them. They could probably heal through bursting unless it's a direct one-shot. Which, you know what? Come to think of it, maybe they're going for a full room pull strat on Raw and then just having everyone meta and stay alive. Not really sure what Edelweiss is going to do in that situation. Maybe she'll just run out of the room and wait for everybody to finish what they need to do. I don't even know how Troll would survive that, to be honest. He doesn't have any immunity, and he's not running a Dwarf or anything of the sort. Both tanks right now are Night Elves or Shadow Meld, so they actually did not play into the Necrotic as a result. Now, doing a fairly aggressive pull here around the corner now. Very dangerous Trash that comes out of this, the captains and the guards, but it looks like they don't want anything to do with it, so they waited for one of the Soul Weavers to spawn, which is why they didn't Shadow Meld right away. They Shadow Melded everything off, and now they're getting ready for a pull in the courtyard, it seems. Or from the courtyard. I'm
not completely sure if No Girls Allowed was planning on pulling this Rune Weaver. I think this was a mistake. It looks like they were doing the same thing as Method EU, just running through, Shadow Melting off, and then the Rune Weaver just kind of didn't lose aggro. So now they pull it on top of some of those Jagged Hounds, but I do believe this is a mistake and might slow them down a little bit. Now, one thing to note, that both of the tanks that we saw in Waycrest earlier were actually playing Dwarf to get rid of the Necrotic stacks, but both Now and Trell are playing Night Elf for the Shadow Meld, so they do not have the Dwarf version to get rid of the Necrotic stacks in case they want to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Now taking a lot of damage here, 35 stacks. The bursting does fall off. He refreshes his stacks, but they do kill the pack, meaning Necrotic drops immediately, and Zayla is able to heal him up. That's part of the danger. Dilemma going down on the side of No Girls Allowed. First death of the dungeon on either side as Edelweiss gets one of the dots on her. She's not able to cleanse it off because I believe that's a disease.
Yeah.
But the Trell should be able to cleanse it off. He saw how much damage it's doing and how dangerous it was for Edelweiss, but he can't commit, or doesn't want to commit the GCD. Maybe they're in a fight right now or something. I don't know. But Sistar going down just a bit, 60%. Looks like they're going to stabilize this Rune Weaver that they accidentally pulled, and I totally agree with you. It was an accident. Zayla going down to 11%. Let's put that one on hold for a sec as they deal with this Emissary. Finally, they cleave it down enough just to manage to stabilize as they get the rest of these Thorn Shapers down. Same pull coming in here right now for No Girls Allowed as metas are coming back in about 20 seconds for these Demon Hunters.
We actually did see Zalia also having one of those diseases on him as he dropped very low on top of having a Void Emissary AoE go off on him. And as soon as he saw Zalia drop low, Maris did dispel the debuff off of Zalia, and he also dispelled himself. So Maris definitely using that dispel to make sure that Zalia has an easier job keeping everybody alive. And now we see another pull, Soulbound Goliath actually being pulled on top of this. You saw Jinji the Rogue actually Tricks of the Trade on Now, and he was pulling the rest of the trash away to be sure that they don't aggro Brindle here, the mini-boss.
Yeah, no, like, well done by them. We've seen a lot of teams do this. It seems to be becoming more popular to just kind of skip Matron Brindle entirely. She is very dangerous in the fortified environment, a lot of damage. And it's not even really just the danger, she's just so much health, and it's so inefficient to cleave her down. Especially, you want to put her in fire, but if you want to pull her with the Soulbound Goliath, you can't put her in fire because the Soulbound Goliath then resets when you don't want him to. So best to just avoid her at all costs, as they did. No Girls Allowed getting ready here to pull the Emissary of the Tides on top of two Thorn Shapers. So hopefully they manage to chew through that quickly, else they will get some of those soul fetishes go off. Now, they have 3 Demon Hunters, they have 3 offensive Dispels, which is actually quite nice. So not really the end of the world should the Soul Fetishes get off on the side of No Girls Allowed.
And one more thing, they don't have a rogue, so they cannot do this whole skip that we just saw. And did oh, okay. So Sistar did get dispelled. He had 2 debuffs on him, so thankfully Trell did use that dispel to make sure that Sistar is alive. But yeah, they have to deal with the Brindle here because no rogues, so they're not able to pull it away. They could pull it away and then Shadow Melt, but that's way riskier, and you're in a corner, and it's just much more difficult. Trell actually going down. Soul Fetish.
Yeah, Matron Brindle has Soul Fetish. Nobody consumed magic on the Soul Fetish before the Thorn. No, not let alone interrupted. They missed the cleanse on it, the consume magic, so it ended up buffing Matron Brindle, and now they're probably desperately trying to consume magic off of Matron Brindle, and if they're not, they better be. It's a 10-second cooldown. Her stack should be gone soon. There it is. She's not glowing blue anymore, so they get back in. Trell is already immediately returned, and they don't have a battle res right now, so a bit of a mistake from them. And, you know, even if this pull had gone swimmingly, Dagor, this is so much time lost. This is so inefficient. Method User already pulled her to the side, almost killed Soulbound Goliath at 21% right now. No Girls Allowed is still dealing with Matron Brindle. Undad is dead. Trell died on top of it. Undad is not releasing for whatever reason right now, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. This is a huge amount of time lost. If they had to do this without the Rogue, they should have had either somebody pull her and Shadow Meld, or just pull it with something, because this is a huge inefficiency.
Yeah, and one thing to note about I'm pretty sure the Soul Fetish is 5 stacks, right? And each Dispel that you can do with the Demon Hunter offensive Dispel only removes 1 stack. So it does cost a little bit of time to get rid of them too, so you just want to interrupt it. We did talk about it before, where we said, you know, Demon Hunter can Dispel it, but, you know, it takes quite a while until you get rid of those 5 stacks.
I think you can actually grab the buff from them before they die, the 1 stack that they have. The fact
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you can do that. I'm pretty sure like that's available on live. I could be mistaken, but I think you can kind of strip that from them early. Nonetheless, No Girls Allowed here, 85% right now on Soulbound Goliath. Finally on the boss, chewing it down. Something that Method Use already dealt with, plus once again, they're 5% ahead on Trash. No deaths on the board. So it's cool to see this comp from No Girls Allowed, and I'm certainly not going to point fingers at the comp. I think they're chewing through damage really well. I think the strat in terms of efficiency of routing can certainly be done with this comp. They have a Night Elves for Shadow Meld, so it's nothing to do with the comp. I think they're more inefficient than Method EU right now.
It definitely seems like it. It's the same problem we saw in Freehold as well. Trell actually struggling a little bit here to survive Soulbound Goliath and damage as they pulled the boss and also pulled up Thorn Shapers on top of it. So they want to make sure that they interrupt as much as possible. You see the debuffs on Edelweiss and Undead just doing so much damage, and Trell doesn't really have time to dispel him because he's dying himself. You look how low he drops as Edel goes down, so it's going to be a full team wipe.
It's going to be a team wipe. The Demon Hunters might want to get in the Hall to try and finish off the Trash before Soulbound Goliath finishes them off, but full team wipe coming in here from No Girls Allowed. That'll seal the deal, at least for now. But with Method to use pace that they're going at, even with the dangerous Hall pull they just did, full of maggots, and as a result, spit debuffs, and of course, well, no bursting from the maggots, but spit debuffs and necrotic stacks on the tank. You can see how much Method is respecting it. They usually pull this entire Hall and do a crazy pull. They actually did it in 2 separate pulls this week, just because of how dangerous this part of the dungeon really is.
Yeah, and you see now, you know what? Ooh. He's almost going down here as the start of the pull, just because he charges in, he immediately gets auto-attacked by all of them, applying so many necrotic stacks, and it's so hard for him to survive, but they did recover, did get him back up. At this point, he needs to start kiting though, because you can see just how high those necrotic stacks are going, and he's just going to be unhealable very soon. That's why you see now in the back here, the Ring of Peace coming out, and this is really how you have to deal with the necrotic, right? You want to make sure that as soon as the stacks are high and the tank has enough aggro, you just walk away, get the Ring of Peace, make sure everything dies before the tank gets aggro again, or before they reach the tank rather. And as you mentioned, necrotic just disappears as soon as you kill off all the mobs. So that's the goal. You don't want to focus something down first and then go on something else. You kind of just want to AoE everything as fast as possible to make sure the tank gets out of combat to get clear of those necrotic stacks.
It's not just even that, but they timed it really well there. He started running away as the first of the mobs were dying, because you're right, until you kill all the mobs, necrotic stays there. So the problem is you're having bursting combined with necrotic that I've mentioned before. So he went and cleared his necrotic stacks before the bursting started ramping up on the group, allowing him to actually be healed. Mira's unfortunately going down. Frag going down as well. 2 battle reses available, but there's going to be a full team wipe here for Method EU. They bit off more they could chew right now, and it looks like they're going to have to release in just a moment here and get back into action. I mean, the moment Frag and Mira's died on that pull, there was no saving it. Mira's did did get the battle res, as you can see. They had 2 on the board, now they only have 1. Used the battle res in order to save the run back, and is using his resuscitate on Xaylia, who is now revitalizing or AoE resing the group. A bit of a slip up here for Method EU.
Yeah, I believe what happened was that they were engaging Rawl, and then they pulled the whole room back. And what happened was that there was an enchanted emissary that hasn't been dealt with properly. So I believe people just killed. Well, in theory, yes, but they just either they forgot about it or they didn't get the proper CC on it that they wanted to. Maybe the Vortex was on cooldown or the Ring was on cooldown, and then they had the enchanted emissary just coming in, and I think they just killed themselves. I'm not completely sure what exactly happened, but definitely a huge mistake by Method EU, as they have a full team wipe. Now they have their Boralus available. They're probably going to use it for a Ral and the pull. You see just how much bursting everyone has, but they're fine now. But yeah, maybe they use it for a Ral.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that Enchanted Emissary's aura reflects 200% of damage done. So, I mean, we all know Jimmy, right? Fragnance, he gets in there and he wants to kill everything right away, and he probably didn't notice that the reflect was up. So Mirrors and him basically, I believe, spell reflected them, damage reflected themselves on it. We'll have to see if Tettles had a good look at that backstage. We'll see during the analysis clip. But nonetheless, they have now started on Rawl the Gluttonous, 85%. It looks like they are indeed holding on to that Bloodlust, refusing to use it too early. Maybe I wouldn't be shocked if they combine it with either the Gloom Horrors on Goraktul at the end of the dungeon or the massive Witch pull along with Lord and Lady Waycrest. So those are 2 options where they could be really aggressive with that Bloodlust, and are of course very dangerous pulls as well. No Girls Allowed has now dealt with, oh no, they haven't dealt with the Soulbound Goliath yet. Big pull coming in here from them, and they did pull the whole room here with Rawl, as we said earlier. They're gonna have to be really careful. Troll taking a huge amount of damage. Dilemma goes down, and it looks like that pull just never came together in the first place. Troll was running around trying to get aggro and everything. DHs were getting hit. Enchanted Emissary was running all over the place, so they did have full intent to do that pull, but it didn't work out. Fortunately for them, the DHs did not use their Metamorphosis, so they can try it again if they want, but that pull is very hard to do, especially if you don't have any misdirects. Everybody has to be very disciplined about where the mobs go and how quickly they get there.
They also didn't commit the Bloodlust. I assume they would want to commit it right there, and they're metas too, so they can try it again, as you mentioned. Now, one more thing to note about Demon Hunters. We've been talking about true CC in the form of sap from rogues, which does not put you in combat if you walk past them. So if you have a bunch of mobs, let's say 2 or 3, and you sap them all and you walk past with your group, you can stay out of combat. But almost all of the other CCs do not work this way. If you have a Frost Trap, for example, from a Hunter or a Paralyzed, you still get in combat if you go in aggro range. But the Demon Hunter Cage actually works the same way as Sep. Those 2 CCs are the only true CCs in-game, so Demon Hunter definitely having some advantages here too, which you could work around if you run a comp like that.
Yeah, true, but where exactly do they want to use that? Like, there's no point in this dungeon. I mean, that's something good for, let's say, Tol Dagor, right? We have a couple of double packs, even triple packs that you want to skip in the hallways. That's totally cool there, but, I mean, here, I don't really know if they get full advantage. At least, look, I haven't seen them use it in this dungeon
that's
at all.
True.
So I think for the most part, they're going straight into it. Lot of taking damage here on the group right now. Now goes down. They do have the Battle Res available, but they're not going to commit to it. Oh, actually, they do commit to it. There goes the Battle Res. Yet again, they managed to escape death. Almost a full team wipe, but they had that Battle Res available. Spit was taking all over the place. Xaylia makes sure everyone's nice and healthy and gets now back up to make sure that this fortified Rune Weaver does not finish off the rest of the group. Now, No Girls Allowed going for another pull here, but it looks like this time a bit more modest. They are not pulling the entire room on top of Rawl.
Yeah, and both teams struggling quite a bit in this dungeon. This is probably why those teams complain so much. Shout out to Twitter for choosing those beautiful affixes. They're insanely fun to watch. Thank you very much. The team's not so happy though, as you can see with their wives coming in. But Method EU, they are working on... Oh, this was something I wanted to talk about before, because I wanted to know if they're going to do a similar thing as we saw from Method A, where they're... going backwards after the last boss. Talks to the NPC, go to the first room, but it doesn't seem like it because they're dealing with this room right now. So they're, running a little bit of a different strategy here where they finish off this survivalist and the marksman, and then they go to the last boss. Jinji going down, so there's some problems here.
Yeah, Jinji took a chunk damage from the Void Touch emissary that they pulled in the kitchen. You can see it at the top of the observer view here. By pulling all the maggots out, you aggro that. You can, of course, line of sight it, but unfortunately, while DPSing, Jinji kind of snuck around the side and got hit by it once or twice. Combine that with a couple of debuffs in the group, it finished him off. He doesn't have cheat death available, so they're going to opt to just do a full run downstairs right now and shadow meld the rest of this off. I don't know if they're actually going to be in the spherical radius of rezzing Gingy, even though it's 100-yard range, and that's what you can see Zalia's trying to get in range of him to do. I believe they will. I mean, they're just technically under the floor of where he died right now, but if not, he is a rogue, and he can get back on the opposite side of where the Void is in the kitchen, and they managed to do it. So they're going to get started here on Lord and Lady Waycrest. We'll see if they decide to dedicate their Bloodlust here in a moment. No Girls Allowed has finally finished off that pull after some more deaths. They're now at 16, and they've started on Raw. Both Bloodlusts have been activated. One on Raw here for No Girls Allowed, and one on Method EU with the aggressive trash pull plus Lord Waycrest.
Yeah, so No Girls Allowed not really pulling anything on top here, but they just have to use their Bloodlust because they want to make use of it. They don't just want to sit on it forever, as Method EU does pull a lot of trash on top here. So you can see the bursting stacks on top of having the AoE damage coming out of the first phase of this fight is hurting them quite a bit. You see now having so many necrotic stacks as well. Yeah. So he will have to reset somehow.
That's what he's doing right now. Finally managed to get the reset off. I actually think the boss reached him before he reset, but he very luckily parried the next melee, so he didn't apply necrotic, so really lucky for them there. There is a Void Emissary behind the group in a 180-degree camera view of where Method EU is right now, so they have to be very careful where they take this boss, which is why you saw now Heroic Leap along the edge of the play field to make sure that he doesn't accidentally aggro the Void Emissary on the side and you know, cause a bit of issue for the group there. You can play around it even if you aggro it, but makes it even more of a pain in the butt. Lord Waycrest hitting his last full bar of health as Lady Waycrest is about to join him, and Rawl is at 30% for No Girls Allowed.
Yeah, you see, we saw some of the teams struggle a little bit on this fight. We saw Tank go down earlier at the very end of this fight. Now, usually you want to just focus down Lord Waycrest and then go on Lady Waycrest. If you want to be efficient, though, you just kind of cleave both at the same time. It does more damage the longer they're alive, though, so you want to watch out for that. And of course, they both also apply Necrotic. I don't think Lady Waycrest melees as much because she casts a lot, so not too dangerous. As we can see, Lady Waycrest is getting cleaved as well, so they definitely go for efficiency rather than safety here. It's also fortified, so shouldn't be too dangerous for those teams to play for efficiency.
Big dilemma coming in here for No Girls Allowed, as Dilemma himself falls over yet again for death. 17 for No Girls Allowed, looking to maybe res him. I don't know. Maybe they're mad at him. I'm not really sure. Finally, the res comes up, so he does manage to get up. And they still have Soulbound Goliath because if you did forget, it seemed like ages ago, but they did actually wipe to Soulbound Goliath earlier in the dungeon, combining it with a lot of the trash that just didn't work out for them. So they are basically a boss and a half behind at this point. Method U's finished with their encounter already and are cleaving down the Gloom Horrors.
Yeah, so Method U showing that, you know, they're not perfect. They definitely can make mistakes too. Had a full team up coming in here. Unfortunately, No Girls Allowed struggling even more than Method U did. There was a chance, really, for No Girls Allowed to win this dungeon. There definitely was an opening with those mistakes that Method U made, but No Girls Allowed is struggling even more. Just not being practiced enough maybe in this dungeon, just having too many mistakes. 17 deaths, while Method U has still 7 deaths too, right? But it's not 17, so I think the math checks out. 17 is more than 7. Method EU, they are on Gorak Tool now. They are 99% trash. Not completely sure where they're gonna get the last percent. Not sure if there's a horror somewhere that they didn't pull, but they definitely need something.
Well, I'll tell you, they're gonna get their last percent from somewhere in this dungeon, that's for sure. Gorak Tool right now at 80% on the board. Soulbound Goliath is at 41%, still 67% trash only right now on the board for No Girls Allowed. Certainly not the cleanest of pulls. Slightly reminiscent of their Motherload issues last week, but I mean, look, this was a time trial dungeon, if I'm not mistaken, of course, so, you know, it's a dungeon they've been exposed to. Oh, was it not?
It was not.
Oh, oh no, of course.
Tol, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Tol. Yeah, we made that mistake earlier, but I was thinking about it because so many people have complained about this dungeon that I thought it was a time trial dungeon, but I mean, I guess they're not as well practiced in it, whatever it may be, but to bring 3 Havocs to this dungeon, surely they must have had something up their sleeve. I mean, you saw some aggressive pulls coming out of the team earlier, just trying, you know, full room pull with Rawl, for instance. That's not something you just do on a whim. That's something that you've practiced before, so they've definitely had some exposure to this dungeon. 30% here at Gorak Tool. Method U still has 1% trash somewhere in this dungeon, and No Girls Allowed has finished off Soulbound Goliath and is moving into the kitchen area.
Yeah, Method U definitely not their cleanest dungeon for sure. They also had some mistakes in their Freehold earlier, still managed to beat No Girls Allowed though. So Method U showing, you know, they're not invincible, right? You can beat them if you just meet them in a dungeon where they're making mistakes. As long as you play better and you play perfectly, there's a chance to win. But No Girls Allowed, unfortunately, not winning against Method U this time around as they're finishing off Gorak Tool here. again, they need this 1% here. They probably mismanaged it a little bit, so still just showing some mistakes. But at this point, they're just so far ahead. It doesn't even matter. They just need to finish off this last Mark Sister, and then they'll get the 100% and win against No Girls Allowed 2-0.
Yeah, so they decided to grab the Mark Sister in the corner where the Void Emissary was in Lord and Lady Waycrest's room, and I guess well, if you pull her, it does proxy aggro the Void Emissary. Like, we know that from live, so they couldn't grab it with that big pile during their Bloodlust. I mean, they could, but then they'd have to sit where they are now to LOS the entire time for the boss fight, and it gets messy. But
worth it. I mean, it looks really beautiful and it's pretty, but I think the setup time that it takes and the fact that no one can DPS while this is happening because else you break the fear might just not be worth it in the end. And we see Method and Abra, they're going right now, they're running the exact same comp with the double rogues and the green rogue, and then we see No Vengeance Demon Hunter, and both of them being Horde as well.
I missed the purple rogue already.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe not 3 of them. Maybe just 1 of them would be good. I mean, we didn't really get too much into it earlier, but it kind of made sense that Shakib was playing Demon Hunter because, I mean, that's his main on live. He mains his soup shop on Illidan. That's his guy now. So, and he owns too. He's a pumper. So it makes sense that he was the Demon Hunter and Lighty swapped to DK for that dungeon comp. I liked that dungeon comp. Hope we see more of it later on. But this is definitely the comp that they're more practice on for this dungeon. It makes sense that they kind of stick to that comp. There's nothing too super exciting with the affixes that would make them want to change their comp from what they ran in the previous weeks. So it makes sense that they go back to the sort of comfort comp that we see with Double Rogue and Walker. And of course, we have JB back on the rest of Druid. All is right in the world. The sky is back to blue. Pigs are on the ground. And we're kind of progressing what we normally see in this dungeon, pulling the 2 trash packs for the first boss.
Yeah, and one more thing to note, that Shakib actually was playing Vengeance Demon Hunter, right? He was a tank main, and he was playing a lot of Vengeance in Legion, so just going back to that Demon Hunter for Shakib, well, now he's on his rogue again, no more purple rogue, unfortunately, as both of the teams are basically engaging the boss at the very same time. They're so close to one another, as they both were finishing off the trash pack very similarly at the same time, and now engaging the boss. Abrakeydabra using their Bloodlust, while Method is holding off on it. I wonder what exactly they're saving their Bloodlust for, because almost all of the teams that we have seen so far either used their Bloodlust for the very first trash pull, or they committed to the boss fight, because after this boss, there's lots of spotter things and just smaller trash groups, so no real big pulls that it can do. So I wonder if Method either forgot about it, or if they have something that we've never seen before right after this.
I love that explanation, spotter things. If you could take the entire dungeon and put it condensed into 2 words, Siege of Boralus would just be spotter things. That's literally what this entire dungeon is.
Should be a t-shirt slogan.
That'd be a good one, yeah. Warcraft, get on that. Yes, I mean, like you mentioned, the second this boss goes down, it's all about managing your spotter, making sure that sided artillery is hitting as many mobs as possible. And that's kind of like why we like to talk about the Vengeance Demon Hunter, because it's something that can keep things in place for a long period of time and make sure that your spotter will hit everything and cleave it down for you. It's just an extra added utility tool on top of the toolkits we already have available with monks and rogues. So I like to see that. But like we mentioned before these guys even pulled the boss, it makes sense that they're dealing with a comfort comp. Interesting note for Method NA. They've held on to their Bloodlust. I'm curious to see what they plan on using that. This is a tyrannical dungeon, so not using it on the boss is an interesting choice. It makes sense that they don't really care to use it on this boss, because the damage jump on this fight is only 6 seconds. You can't really take full advantage of that with Bloodlust. So I'm curious to see whether they're going to use that to enable some massive pull here right after the first boss, maybe for consistency's sake, or if they plan on using it on Dread Captain to maybe try to one-phase the boss. That'd be pretty interesting as well. We'll have to see how they plan on using that coming forward.
At this point, I almost feel like they literally just forgot. I mean, again, after this first boss, there's just such a long time where you don't even have the possibility to pull a lot of mobs, and even if you do, you have the spotter available to you right after this pull. So it's such a weird thing that they're not using it. Maybe it's really as you said, and they're just saving it for the second boss and get one less intermission phase, which does save you quite a bit of time. So maybe it really is that, as Abrakeydabra finished off the boss slightly earlier than Method NA, because they were committing their Bloodlust. So that was the only difference between those 2 teams at the start. Abra just being slightly faster on the boss because of the Bloodlust commitment. Now we see beautifully done here by Divine Field, going in by himself. The spotter doesn't cast the artillery on tanks usually. They are not eligible targets unless they're the only one in combat with the spotter. Then there's no other target to cast it on, and therefore Divine Field does get the artillery on him, and he's able to just finish off the mobs with the artillery himself, as he just also casts the AoE fear to make sure all of the mobs stay in place.
Yep, and of course, the main thing to remember is that the small mobs will get one shot by the spotter. They'll still have to do a little bit of damage to the Wave Shaper as well, or they'll have to commit one more sided artillery to the Wave Shaper. Of course, once all the trash is dead, they can then go ahead and single target down the spotter, unless they plan on using it for something else, but it looks like they're going to go ahead and deal with it on both sides. It almost looked like Abrakeydabra wanted to keep it alive for a little while there, but usually what we see teams do is they go across the water, deal with all of the cutters on their own, as we see Ashine doing right now, proccing his cheat death to it, actually. Little bit dangerous, but he dealt with all the gutters, got all that extra mob count. He actually missed one, but I think that's on purpose because he did proc his cheat death. He didn't want to make sure, he didn't want to die to that. So interesting to see whether that's going to cost them mob count. I don't think it will, though. Divine Field actually having to go ahead and die on purpose here because he didn't have a shroud to get by. All the rogues, stealth forward, and he couldn't get the leap off to the bridge. So interesting that's going to happen. That's going to cost him a little extra time too because the res from Zamont gets interrupted by a quaking. So that's a little unfortunate. A little 5-10 second death skip turned into 25 seconds because of quaking. That's unfortunate. And we see Method A already on the boss and already in the first intermission. We're going to see if they plan on using that Bloodlust to try to one phase because it's probably something that's possible, or maybe it's just to guarantee the 2-phase. I'm not entirely sure. On 18, there's a lot of HP on this boss.
Yeah, so Abra actually losing a lot of time in between the first and the second boss. Method A already caught up. When both of the teams were finishing off this spotter, Method A finished off faster than Abra. They were playing all of this trash a lot more inefficient than Method A did. So gotta watch out for that. And now, not only did Method A pull the boss first, but they also still have the Bloodlust available. Actually, they used it right now. So it's probably exactly what you said, that they want to get one less intermission phase. So keep an eye on the boss and keep an eye on the intermission phases, because Drag Captain Lockwood, it's a timed thing where she will jump away and you get the cannoneers that you have to deal with, and then you get the cannon to shoot her back into combat. But once she's away, she can't die, so she will just stay on 1 HP if you have dots on her or bleeds or whatever. So getting one less intermission is actually a big deal because it takes quite a long time to finish off this cannoneer and get her back in.
Yeah, that was interesting. Of course, you can see that yellow energy bar underneath the boss's HP percentage. Whenever she gets to 100 energy, she starts another intermission phase, so that's how you can tell how much time they have left in each phase. Method A with the Bloodlust only got Dread Captain Lockwood from about 85% to 40%, so I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do 40% of the boss's HP without Bloodlust. It's going to be very close if they are able to do it, but not being able to skip that one extra intermission is going to be tough for them. On the side of Abrakeydabra, they only got the boss to 49% on theirs, so I think almost certainly they're going to be getting an extra intermission phase.
Yeah.
So if that Bloodlust play plays off for Method A, it's going to save them an entire extra intermission worth of time, which is just, it's actually a pretty large gain for them. That's a really safe play. It's cool to see them do that.
Yeah, and it's pretty smart too, because usually when you go into a dungeon, you want to use your Bloodlust as fast as possible, right? Because you want to get it on cooldown and you want to use it again to get the most efficiency out of this. But those MDI teams, they know exactly how long they take, like how long they need in a dungeon. So if they know, no matter what, we're only going to get 2 Bloodlusts, then we don't have to use it at the start. We can use it whenever, as long as we get the 2, right? So, thinking about all of the Bloodlust usages and thinking that it actually matters more here, as you can see, we're getting one less intermission. Method A already done with the boss, so definitely matters for them here.
It's going to be close for Abra. They can pull it off if they get some big burst damage here, but Method A, they pushed from 39 to 0 at about 80 energy. Abra needs to get some big burst damage, or they're going to have to deal with that extra intermission, and it looks like they're going to get it. That Bloodlust play for sure paid off for Method A. That's big brain from them, and you can see a little bit of practice and routing went into the thought process for this dungeon, especially this week here. I like to see just little innovations from them. That's really cool to see. And of course, like we mentioned, after the bosses, it's back to dealing with the spotter things.
Yeah, we see the spotter things unfolding right here. The Emissary of Tides you see in the back is just being rooted by JB. First it was sapped by one of the rogues, and then it will just be follow-up rooted all the time by JB. The root only lasts 8 seconds on the Emissary of Tide, but it does not have a diminishing return, so you can just constantly reroute it. It does take, root is a cast time, and it takes a while to get the root off. So if there's a big pulls where there's a lot of damage incoming, it can definitely cost you some healing just because you have to spend the time to reroute all the time. But these kind of pulls don't usually do a lot of AoE damage if your damage dealers and your tank dodge everything. So if you dodge the bananas in the 4 and you don't get hit by artillery or slam or anything like that, then there's not that much healing required. You see JB actually just stepping into 2 bananas right as I said that.
Shakib, what are you doing, dude? Those don't give you any potassium. They aren't good for you in the dungeon. Get out of there. That's funny. See, that was a really good close-up POV. I liked that. So yeah, they still got the spotter alive, and they're going to go ahead and skip through here. They have a lot less percentage than they normally do here, I feel like, but looks like they're just going to go ahead and shadow melt everything off and use this new spotter, which is, I mean, what we normally see. I wonder, well, they haven't shadow melted everything off yet. I wonder if they're just going to use the double spotters to, yeah, they are Horde, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking nonsense. It looks like they're planning on using double spotters to deal with all the trash they just ran through. This is also new. We haven't seen this before.
Okay, so we actually did see this before, the first time in the West Cup, but Lighty going down. And that's why I mentioned before that Method EU was not doing this strategy. I was saying...
No, they weren't, yeah.
Yeah, they were doing this the first time around in the first cup, but Method EU now changed up their strategy to not do this. They're actually just like completely changed up because of the plus 18 probably. Nerf actually going down. So this might just be a full team wipe coming in as JB goes down as well. Oh, this is a huge mistake by them because all of the mobs were so low, but they didn't finish off. So that means with the full wipe coming in, all of those mobs are going to go back and they're going to reset. So huge mistake by Method NA. A lot of time lost. Abrakeydabra, they're not far behind, so at this point they can come back. And yeah, this is something that I saw Method EU do this dungeon earlier, and it's like, oh wait a second, they're doing everything a lot slower now because they don't have the raging affix anymore, and raging definitely makes this dungeon a little bit easier just because the spotter actually does increase damage as soon as he's in raging, so he also does more damage to the mobs with the artillery. And then we also went from 17 to 18, so siege just generally got more difficult, even though quaking and volcanic are not necessarily more difficult, but you have less artillery damage and therefore everything just takes longer. So that's why Method EU actually did smaller pulls instead of this exact pull that we saw from Method NA, and it seems like it didn't pay off for them.
It looks like Abrakeydabra is doing the same pull, and I don't even know where I am. What year is it? I feel like I've never seen this. This must be. I must have just completely missed it. So that's on me. Whatever. I don't know what to say. I guess I completely missed this strategy because I remember teams doing completely different things. But yeah, Method EU must have done this one dungeon and I just completely missed it. But this is not going well again for Method NA. Both Shakib and Lighty have gone down to this pull. They don't have a battle rise up for Shakib. You would think that he would want to release, but no, Nerf going down again. This is going to be another full team wipe for them, and this just isn't working out. Whereas on the side of Abrakeydabra, they have the pull figured out. They got it in their first go, and I mean, they only have the one other pull left in the dungeon, and they have Bloodlust available for it should they choose to use it there.
This is so bad for Method NA. I mean, even with the first wipe, they were still kind of close. If they would have pulled it off the second time right there, right, then they would have been kind of close to Abra still, because they were pulling so far ahead up until this point. So if they would have managed this pull the second time around, it still would have been a close game. But now with the second wipe, 12 deaths, mobs again reset, full HP again. So this is just a huge problem for Method NA. Well, Abrakeydabra, they're playing a lot cleaner. You can see they only have 1 death. They did have the slower strategy. They were less efficient. Method NA definitely had a more efficient strategy, but just because they play cleaner and safer, it might just pull off for Abrakeydabra as they're dealing with the last few trash mobs here right in front of the next boss.
Yep, and they're doing it pretty cleanly right now. They only have a couple more shots from the spotter in order to get everything down, and then they'll have to cleave down the commanders and the Tides emissaries, but 1 or 2 more spotter shots and they've gotten through all the trash that they have left in the dungeon, outside of the non-spotter killable trash. So very clean execution from Abrakeydabra, and they even managed to save their Bloodlust for the cleave should they choose to use it there. I believe what we see most teams do is cleave down the commanders and the emissaries of Tides with Hadal whenever he respawns, so they have that available for that should they choose to use it there. This was, we saw how poorly the pull can go on the side of Method NA, and how the pull will look if you do it perfect from the side of Abrakeydabra. And it's really interesting to see this kind of new Abrakeydabra, because normally when we see these matchups from Abrakeydabra, they would be the team that's shooting themselves in the foot and making mistakes, but it's interesting to see that from Method NA. It's almost like Method NA and Abrakeydabra have swapped positions from Spring Cup, where Abrakeydabra is just playing better. It's good to see for them as well. Like, they always had a problem with being able to compete against both Method NA and Method EU, and seeing them, pull it together in this first dungeon is great to see.
Yeah, definitely Abrakeydabra doing a pretty good job so far. They actually choose to finish off the mobs here instead of doing... Oh, Smaka just running into an artillery, almost going down here. Thankfully did survive. But yeah, so they're choosing to play a little bit safer here, just finishing off all the mobs before they engage the boss. As you mentioned, usually some people will, get the commanders, get the spotter, just pull it on top of Hadal and just cleave it all down. But maybe they probably know that they're ahead, right? They probably see on the stream that MethodNA just had all of those mistakes, have the 14 deaths, and just said, you know what, let's play it safe, let's finish it off, get out of combat, make sure Smaka gets a heal, gets a drink off, get the mana back, and then we engage the last boss. They still need 1% trash. I do believe they finished off the spotter for Abra, so... At least I haven't seen the spotter around, so...
I saw them kill one of them. They had two. I wonder if the second spotter is still just chilling behind the gate over there, and that's what their last percentage is. But that would be kind of weird as well, because I think it would come through the gate. Eventually, it doesn't... enemy mobs don't care about gates. If you're in combat with them, they'll come wherever they need to come. So, yeah, we'll have to see what they do for that last 1%. I think they have a spotter left, but if they don't, they'll have to backtrack and take care of that. That being said, I mean... The only major difference right now, MethodNA is not far behind in terms of where they are in the dungeon, and they are committing to the cleave on Hadal, so this is going to be a lot more dangerous for them. That being said, it's mostly just tank damage, but when all of this residual damage is going out in an 18 tyrannical dungeon, Hadal does a lot of burst damage on the group, but then he doesn't really do much for quite a while until he casts his ability again. So as long as JB is kind of focusing nerf throughout most of this trash percentage, they should be totally fine, no caster curse. But this is a lot of tank damage while the ads are still up here.
I mean, it's definitely a difficult thing to do here. I think this might just be something they have to do. They probably know, you know what, we died. We have 14 deaths. We have to do something here. So let's just pull a boss. Let's try to do it. It's definitely possible. We've seen stuff like this before. But one thing to note, that I'm pretty sure that they're all in combat. I think MethodNA is in combat with a Void Emissary, because when Lydie and Yoda, they were dying and they walked back to the group, they pulled a Void Emissary, I believe, because I saw the debuff on them, and they're not Night Elves. So if Lydie's in combat with the Emissary, then everyone else is as well, because JB is healing him and therefore gets aggro as well, and I think they're all in combat. So once Hadal goes down and to finish off the spotter, there's no way of JB to get a drink off or for them to, get another potion. The only people to get out of combat are the rogues, so that might be a problem for JB's mana. It is tyrannical, so there's quite a bit of AoE damage. It's usually healable, right? But if you don't get a drink off at all, then that might cause some problems later on for JB.
And it looks like they are going to have to backtrack for that extra mob count, as they are kind of pulling Hadal to the gate where the trash is going to be, on the other, where the trash they skipped previously was. So a little unfortunate miscalculation from them, but they're far enough ahead in the dungeon, both in boss percentage as well as, I believe, an extra minute in terms of deaths. We have 14 deaths to 1, so 65 extra seconds on the board for Abrakeydabra to work with on their side. So a lot of safety for them. They'll probably just deal with... It looks like they just have this emissary they can kill pretty easily here for their extra percentage. That should be plenty. And then they'll just move on to the final boss, which they do have Bloodlust available for as well. On the side of MethodNA, they do have all the trash percentage done, and they are pretty close to finishing off Hadal. But I believe just where they are in the dungeon, the boss is tyrannical, so even so it's 30%, it still has several million HP left. Abrakeydabra should get to and engage the final boss before MethodNA does, and it would pretty much take a full team wipe from Abrakeydabra to give MethodNA a chance in this dungeon. We have seen, no caster curse, but we kind of have to talk about it, right? Abrakeydabra has still made those mistakes. They made the mistake against MethodNA last week, where Zamok ended up going down in that final boss of Shrine of the Storm, and it cost them the dungeon. That has to be something that's in the back of their minds, right? They have to think, oh, we're in the lead, we have this in the bag, just play safe, don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, they're definitely a team that can make those kind of huge mistakes, and nerfs are getting to them. We've seen Abra, at least in the past, we've seen them, be this team that are just kind of their own enemy, right? They have those mistakes, have a healer go down here, no battle rest available, full team wipes on a boss, something like that, especially at the very end, right? They're so close to winning, and then they make some sort of mistake, which actually happened to MethodNA as well a couple of times, as they were playing against MethodEU, and they were so close to winning against them, and then something went wrong at the very end. So both Abra and MethodNA doing those kind of things, so definitely gotta watch out, as Abra really just needs to finish off this boss no matter how fast they are. They could even just play it completely safe and finish off 5 demos probably on each platform, and they will probably still win. MethodNA also the last boss now, but 13 deaths difference, that's just an insane amount of time. Both teams do have Bloodlust available as well.
That was not whatever just happened to Shine there was not good. He got hit by one of the Demolishing Terrors and instantly procced his cheat death, so he doesn't have that available anymore. That's just, you know, maybe they committed to the Gripping Terror a little bit too soon and extra Demolishing Terror spawn for them, or Tendril rather. But I mean, that's just a little spooky to see that you don't have that cheat death available, and he also gets hit again there for 60% of his HP, so you got to keep an eye out. This is still an 18 Tyrannical dungeon. These mechanics do a lot of damage if you don't do them properly.
Yeah, Jay also proccing the cheat death. So now both rogues not having the cheat death available to them, they gotta be careful here. As Method and A, they also engaged the last boss. JB looks very fine on mana, so even if he didn't get out of combat at all because of the Void Touched Emissary, then they're still fine, as you can see right now. Smok did proc the staff. Also, one thing to note that Smok does not have the staff proc, the Shower Staff available, while JB does. So they can definitely make use of that later on. Swag going down for Abrakeydabra. They do have two. So after this rest, they have one more battle rest ready and another one coming up. So as long as Smok doesn't die, they still have 2 battle rests available.
And it looks like they commit the Bloodlust to this platform. I would imagine this Bloodlust is purely committed for this platform so that you skip the 3rd Demolishing Terror, because normally you'd have to swap to the 2nd one and then you'll have to kill the 3rd one as well. The Bloodlust allows you to finish off the Gripping before the 3rd Demolishing Terror spawns, which is pretty much one of the checks you want to break at this point. Method and A not opting to do that on their side, and they're actually like caught up in terms of progression in this dungeon right now. I mean, this is neck and neck. Of course, the main factor being that Method and A has 12 more deaths, which means they have a minute of ground that they have to make up here. It would still require some catastrophe from Abrakeydabra here, but both rogues dropping incredibly low here to what I assume are slams from the Demolishing Terror. That's not what you want to see. This is very shaky from them, and they don't have their Bloodlust available, whereas Method and A does.
I think they're actually just really, like, they're playing really risky, I think, on Abra's side, because they just let 2 demos spawn 2 Demolishing Tentacles, and then they just focus down their Gripping, which is something they don't really have to do, to be honest. I'm not completely sure why Abra is playing this risky when, you know, they have a whole minute difference. You see Method and A, they're popping their Bloodlust for the very last Tentacle here. JB still has the staff available as well, so not sure if he's going to use it here too. But again, 1 minute difference. If Abrakeydabra does not make a mistake here, they should be fine.
It looked like Zamok was about to try to walk into the tides to try to proc his staff, and then he realized last second, wait, that's on cooldown, I shouldn't do that, and then he walked out of it. That was, or maybe it was because of the quaking, but it looked for a second there like he was trying to proc his staff. But the Gripping Terror is going down for both teams at the same time. Of course, like we mentioned, the problem is Method and A has those 12 extra deaths on the board, so even though the Gripping is down here, Abra's going to have an extra minute of time to deal with this final cannon shot, so they can sit there, they can pretty much take their time to finish this off. I think we saw Shakib miss, or we saw a team in the East Cup miss their cannon shot twice. It was definitely on purpose. More deaths coming out for Method and A here, but they do get the final cannon shot off. But because of the 2, 3.
Oh wait,
I missed it.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Did it. Perfect.
Beautiful.
All right. I'm actually really interested to see if either of these 2 teams picked up on what Method EU did, because I feel like their massive pull was a really good adaptation to what the Tyrannical dungeon wants you to do. And if you can get, like, they got a quarter of their mob count done in 1 pull, and it looks like Method and A is already doing something very similar. This is, once again, a very massive pull from them. So we're going to have to see if they're able to pull this off. I mean, the person to look here is that the Unholy DK. He's going to do a massive amount of damage here, even committing their Bloodlust to it. Over to 750,000 DPS. I mean, if they're able to finish this off and have good sanguine management, this is going to be great from them. But so far their sanguine management is good. They have a couple crack shots that are sitting inside the sanguine. That one crack shot that just came into the frame did heal to full in the back there, but that should be totally fine. I mean, that's something that I'll take in terms of this pull. The main danger of the pull is almost all gone with these Enforcers at very low, and once the Enforcers are dead, they should be able to deal with these crack shots pretty clean. So, I mean, I think that's already an advantage for Method and A here.
I mean, Abra did do the same pull, but they had some struggle, right? Because they had Swagfist actually go down on the skip, because he did Shadow Melt, but he didn't really get it off properly, so his Swagfist went down. They had to commit a full rest coming back up. So, you know, some problems for Abrakeydabra here again. I think something like that happened earlier as well. They definitely need to make sure that they finish up, you know, they don't make those small little mistakes, because just having 1 rest is not going to be the end of the world, but if you need the mass rest off, it's still just going to cause so many problems. And I was wrong, so Abra actually does have only 18%, while Method and A has 23%. So Method and A definitely doing a bigger pull here, the same pull as Method EU did earlier, right? So insane pull by Method and A, and they also engaged the boss slightly earlier, I believe, so definitely advantage for Method and A. Abrakeydabra, though, they were saving their Bloodlust for the boss, so they will have more boss damage, they will finish it off faster, and they also pull some trash on top of it. So I believe that the missing percentage between Abra and NA will be this tragedy pulled on top.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if the Bloodlust with the Cleave is going to put, if they're going to be pretty much neck and neck coming out of it. Because right now, I mean, the Cleave with Bloodlust should be efficient, but they are going to lose a little bit of single target damage once that Bloodlust runs out. On top of that, there's a big chance if they don't manage their knockbacks properly, that like we see right there with the Corsair, that they're going to get some healing off. That's pretty much worst case scenario. I think the only thing that would possibly be worse is if the boss starts casting as the mobs die and the boss gets healed. But as you can see, in terms of strategy, they're pretty much at the same point with a tiny, like almost negligent advantage for Abrakeydabra. And I think it's important to mention here that we kind of overplayed a little bit of what Method EU did. This is actually the same mob count that Method EU meant to pull. They actually accidentally stayed in combat with the original 3-pack they pulled before the stairs. And the fact that they were able to still pull that pull off with the 3 extra mobs, yeah, it just goes to show, how good they actually are as a team. So this is kind of what Method EU meant to do, and to see both Method NA and Abrakeydabra pull it off in their own separate ways is it's pretty good to see.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, especially because we have a Freehold switch to Tyrannical, right? And most of the dungeons stay the same, they stay 45 throughout all of the season, but we changed it up a little bit for the summer season, and Freehold was Tyrannical before, and now we switched to, was 45 before, and now we switched to Tyrannical. And if you have those huge changes, then you need to adapt your strategy, because you can't just play a 45 strategy on a Tyrannical. You're going to be way too slow, because Tyrannical does allow you to pull way more trash than 45, of course. So adapting the strategies for both Abra and Method NA, very nice to see. I mean, in the end, they could have watched Method EU and just copied the strategy, but I don't think such a strategy change is as easily copied, because it's a pretty huge pull, right? Something that we see from Method EU. You can't just, practice one time and then just do it in cap play. You definitely need to practice those kind of pulls more often to make sure that it works properly, because, if it only works one time, then you don't really want to pull it off in cap play. So definitely shout out to both those teams for adapting it a little bit. Abra finishing the boss slightly earlier than Method NA though.
Yeah, I mean, based off of the boss damage that we saw earlier on, I think that was going to be the case. They were a little bit ahead the entire time, just because it makes sense to use Bloodlust on a boss when in a Tyrannical setting, especially Sky Captain Crag, which has that ridiculous single target damage with the bursting shots as well. You could see the monks dropping to 10% HP, the rogues dropping to 10% HP every time they got shot. It's just an incredibly dangerous boss, and I'm kind of glad that they have these affixes, because if it was something like Grievous, we would be seeing people go down on that boss every single time we were in this dungeon. So a little bit lucky for them with the affixes. Maybe not so lucky next time. Hopefully, we'll see.
What about that quaking? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Ooh, that's just mean.
That is really mean.
Maybe quaking and Grievous at the same time. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Just get straight up one shot by a shot plus quaking. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Well, there goes my cheat death, guys. Sorry. So I'm interested to see here, because like we mentioned, it is Tyrannical. These trash mobs aren't as dangerous. They should be doing massive pulls, especially with the Unholy Decays. And we see, I believe, this is 4 packs worth of mobs for Method NA here. They're doing a much bigger pull than what Abrakeydabra is doing. If they can pull this off, this will give them a very firm advantage in the dungeon.
Yeah, you can see just how many packs there are on top of each other. There's so much control that you require for these mobs too. These mobs maybe not as difficult as mobs in Kragma's room in Underrot, but there's still a bunch of things they need to make sure they do. You want to make sure that you interrupt the cast, the frontal frost blast, and then you also want to make sure that you deal with the fixates properly. And you can see the whirlwind as well that some of the Buccaneers here do. You saw a Typhoon come out because of the Sanguine, and that's going to be the important part as well when you do those kind of huge pulls. Not only do you need to control all of the mobs themselves, but you want to make sure that you deal with Sanguine properly, because even if you do a huge pull, if the mobs heal constantly, then you might as well just pull it in 2, right? Because if they heal to full HP, what's the point pulling them at all? So they want to make sure they handle that properly with all of the Typhoons and the Ring of Pieces that they have. Abrakeydabra, they're engaging the boss on the other hand.
And outside of one mob, that pull from Method NA was almost perfect. I think one mob
that was really good.
20 or 30%, and that was it. I think the most important mechanic to look at in that particular pull are the scrappers. They do that blind rage mechanic where they'll fixate any random person in the group and do melee, and they'll try to melee them. And something that really helped them out there is both of the fixates went on Lighty, on one person, and he was able to just commit both his Touch of Karma and his Dampen Harm to that. So none of the other DPS had to worry about kiting around. They could just full on DPS, and that was just really fortunate for them as well. They didn't use their stun or anything at that point, so he was able to kite that around. This is kind of spooky for Abrakeydabra with the boss positioning here, because Raul's healing in that Sanguine. He's still full HP because of it. They've got to really find a spot where they can actually do damage to him, because He's just bathing in it right now. This is not...
this hurts to watch.
Not good.
No, the Sanguini just healing roll all the way to full HP. I was staring at Abra because they were pulling a lot of trash. They were pulling the Rat Pack on top of the boss. So he's like, and I was like staring at it, like, is this gonna work out? This seems very sketchy. And Divine Field was tanking the bosses in between the Sanguine. They were just sandwiched in between there. And then Raoul just steps into the Sanguine, stands still, and just starts casting, and he does not move. So this is why you don't really want to play trash on top of this boss, just because those bosses, they constantly charge around. They're very hard to move because they constantly cast abilities. So you can't just move them immediately. So huge mistakes by Abrakeydabra, losing quite a lot of time by the Sanguine. While Method Nate pulled the boss a lot later, and you can see the difference in HP, right? Method Nate is ahead on the boss, even though they engaged it way later.
And they're also doing a fantastic job of dealing with the brews. I've seen at least 2 of the bad brews go into the boss and deal damage to the boss as well. They're just playing this fight to perfection. And I think that's what's great about the different pulls that they use. Method Nate pulled off a massive pull, but it was nowhere near the boss room, so they don't have to worry about any of the Sanguine possibly ever healing the boss, because it's literally outside of the arena. It couldn't happen. That's just good foresight and good planning from them. Abrakeydabra, I mean, they might have been able to pull something off where they killed the rats on the side rather than right in front of the boss, or maybe they've had strategies where they kill them in a certain portion of the room, because there's no Eudora to worry about. The boss isn't going to, jump to one random section of the room. There's no RNG here. You can focus on, you can place the bosses where you want to place them. So maybe that's just unfortunate Sanguine placement from them. Maybe they do a better job stacking that in practice. A little bit unfortunate to see from them. But Method and Age is going to go ahead and pull right into another massive AoE pull here.
Yeah, you can see earlier JV probably stealthed ahead already and made sure the RP is started, because there's an NPC you need to talk to. It takes a while, and then the pick spawns, and you need to click it. So usually what we see teams do is the healers actually just stealth ahead, make sure they talk to the NPC just to speed up this roleplay. As you already see the pick right here, as Shakib picked it up, and now we're going to see Ludwig spawn as they finish off this Emissary of the Tides in this pool, which definitely makes this pool a lot more difficult than it seems, just because none of those mobs are actually CCable. There's no AoE stun or interrupts that he can pull out, so definitely got to watch out, as you also see the fixate on Yoda kiting the mobs.
Yeah, fortunately, Shattering Bellow isn't really going to do anything to anyone in the group except for JB if he's casting something. Something else interesting is Lighty's done literally no damage this entire pull. I wonder what the deal is. Oh, JB going down. Fortunately, they're running an 8K, so they have a battle res, so it's not that big of a deal. But, I mean, that's just a battle res down. They'll have another one coming up in 30 seconds, but that's not, great. You don't want to see your healer go down there. It's a little unfortunate. Fortunately, not that big of a deal. They should have that battle res up when they need it, should they need it, coming up soon. But, for the most part, the trash pack is dealt with. Now, I'm interested to see if they're going to go right into the boss here, or if they're going to backtrack and do another trash pull, so they have time for the Sanguine in the middle to go away. Shakib, you got to stop. Oh, Shakib.
No.
That's going in the trial thread, dude.
Shakib drunk again. Unbelievable. Method though, still very far ahead. They still have the other battle res available. They just came back up to make sure Shakib drunk is alive again. They need to finish up Ludwig here to be able to get to Trophic. And yeah, they're pretty far ahead compared to Abrakeydabra. They're also on Abra's side. They finally managed to finish off the second boss, and they're now also fighting Ludwig. But still, Method Nate finished off Ludwig already. They're in 55% trash. They also have the Bloodlust available. I assume they want to save it for the last boss, though. Something we've seen before by Method U, where you just engage the boss, you pull a lot of trash on top of it, make sure Bloodlust makes it a lot easier, especially on the tank as well. And now we see some more trash pulls coming out of Method A. I wonder if they're gonna pull Trophic as well.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see them do that, because they have to really make sure they're dealing with their Sanguine placement. They want to make sure that they only kill the mobs after one of the whirlwinds, so that he doesn't have any cast sequences that he goes through. They have to know exactly how the boss's cast sequences work, because if the boss starts casting an ability as you're killing mobs and you don't have a knockback available for them, you're going to spawn Sanguine right under the boss, and you're going to heal the boss. Fortunately, they have the Ring of Peace, and I think they still have the knock from JV as well, should they need it. So it looks like they're doing a totally fine job of dealing with Sanguine so far. Only have 3 mobs left to worry about, and then once those 3 mobs are down, they can just position the boss in a place where they don't have to worry about it at all.
Yeah, that's also the beauty of a DK, right? If there's some sort of mob that is about to die on the boss, you can just have the grip come in, make sure it dies far away from the boss. There's also other utilities that they have available to them, though. They also have the Typhoon from the B, and they also have the Ring of Peace. Now, the good thing about the boss not actually being displaceable with a Ring of Peace or Typhoon is that you, instead of waiting for the Sanguine to spawn and then Typhoon the boss out of it, which obviously doesn't work, you want to wait until the mobs are low and then you Typhoon them or Ring of Peace them away before they die, just so the pools spawn away. So you need to think ahead a little bit, but those teams obviously are doing that. That's why you can see Trophic not healing. Well, Method and A is doing that. Abrakeydabra, not really. We've seen the bosses before heal quite a lot. So they want to make sure that they play a lot better with the Sanguine this time around, because Abra also pulled mobs on top of Trophic. So they want to watch out that Trophic does not heal.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a similar strategy from Abrakeydabra here, where they pulled a lot of trash on top of Trophic, and they're doing something similar where their tank is kiting it around while he's whirlwinding, so they don't have to worry about Sanguine. I'm sure they'll have the Ring of Peace and Knock here from the Druid as well, should they need them as the boss does his cast sequence. We'll have to see. Hopefully they'll come out here, because it'd be really unfortunate to see a boss heal again for Abrakeydabra twice in a dungeon. But they're just doing some kiting around. Divine Field, you know, master kiter, very good at doing it. You know, we've seen him do it in previous MDIs as well as this one, so very good at doing his job. And no healing on the boss for Abrakeydabra, so good execution from them. They're just 20% behind on the boss with pretty similar trash count. That's just going to be like one mob hit by the cannon barrages on Harlan Suite, so it's not going to be that big of a difference. That's the thing to look forward to, though, on Harlan Suite, is how well can these groups deal with the Sanguine when they're killing them with the cannon barrage on Harlan Suite, because that can be a big problem.
Yeah, definitely. There's also one thing to note that those teams, I mean, they're still pretty close. Even though Abra, I mean, they are behind, right? But any sort of mistake by Method and A, any sort of, you know, healer dash or Sanguine healing on something should keep going down, as it just happened right now without the battle rest available, actually. Just exactly what I've been talking about. Like, they need to, this might just be the way for Abra to get back into this game. They're both on 3 deaths now, so there's no difference in death counters. We both have 15 seconds, and now this is a tyrannical setting, so Trophic with only 2 DPS, it's going to take them a little bit longer. Of course, they're going to be able to finish it off, but it's still going to cost them a bit of time, and maybe Abra can actually catch up because of it.
Yeah, they're definitely going to catch up a little bit. It still should go down first for Method and A, just based off of, you know, math and damage stuff, because 2 DPS with that 10% versus 3 DPS at 30%. It should die first for Method and A, but...
Can you calculate this?
Nope, not going to do it. I mean, I can look at my phone and do the calculations if you want to
yes,
talk,
please.
but no. The Method and A should definitely kill the boss first, but this is what's going to let Abrakeydabra back into the game for sure. It's going to be a big execution check on Harlan Suite, who can deal with the trash and the cannon barrages better. And I think it's going to be fun watching this, because, I mean, these teams have both had little hiccups all the way throughout the dungeon, and I think the Harlan Suite cannon barrage is probably one of the more difficult maneuvers to execute in the dungeon. So I don't know. It might be in the back of their head a little bit as they move on to the final part of the dungeon, knowing they have to play perfectly if they want to finish this one off.
Yeah, and I mean, Method and A, no battle rest still available. It's also, they're not gonna get one later on either. There's the cooldown is way too long on that one. Abra also having Swagfist die here. They have a battle rest available. They probably don't want to commit it just because Trophic is so low. But now Abrakeydabra, 5 seconds more on those death timers because they're 4 versus 3. I mean,
another one.
Ashine also going down at the very end, so 10 seconds difference now. This is something that can't really happen to Abra on such a close matchup between those two. I mean, Abra is 2% trash ahead, but that's really not going to make a difference at all just because of the artillery of the last boss. Method and A, they're already about to pull Harlan Suite. Now, if Method and A does not make any sort of mistakes, they should be the one finishing this earlier. But again, no battle rats, so they want to make sure they play this very cleanly.
I feel like Abrakeydabra just gave back the advantage to Method and A that Method and A just lost. I mean, they just traded mistakes. That was, I mean, really unfortunate. And right at the end of the boss, too, at like 3%, that's really unfortunate. However, Method and A already popping their Bloodlust on this first AoE pull. We're going to have to see how they manage their Sanguine here, because technically we don't really see that many deaths to this pull. This is usually where the tank pops all of his cooldowns, and as long as the Unholy Decay is able to pump out massive damage here, they should be fine. He's not doing quite what I would expect from an Unholy Decay on this pull. However, over on the side of Abrakeydabra, we have 2 more deaths to the Ravager skip from Divine Field and Dr. J. Just more personal mistakes coming out of them here. This is not stuff you want to see from, you know, a team that's trying to claw their way back into the top seeding for BlizzCon.
Yeah, definitely huge mistakes. Again, I feel like Abrakeydabra had way too many skipping mistakes. We saw earlier at the start of the dungeon, Swagfist going down because I'm not sure if he wasn't in a shroud or he didn't get the shadow melt off. Either way, there was some sort of mistake with the skip, and these things just cost you a lot of time, right? You get the deaths with the 5 seconds punish, and then you also need to cast the Mass Rest, which also takes quite a lot of time to cast the full Mass Rest. So just those tiny little mistakes, they add up, and it's going to cost you too much. Too many mistakes by Abra here with the 7 deaths now, 20 seconds difference now on top of just being behind in general. Now Method and A doing a pretty good job so far dealing with the trash. They still need 17%, so they need to put some more trash on top of Harlan Suite, but they seem to be dealing with it pretty well. There were some small mistakes I saw earlier where JB was targeted by the artillery, but he wasn't actually standing on top of the boss, so he wasn't really damaging them. But still, I mean, they're pulling the rest of the mobs here. Want to make sure that they deal with it really well, and want to make sure they're not healing Harlan Suite with their Sanguine.
Yep, they were waiting for that 60% phase transition where instead of one person getting targeted by Cannon Barrage, now everybody gets targeted by the Cannon Barrage. But I mean, they've just been doing so much AoE damage here that the trash is almost all dead before the Cannon Barrage even hits. So really well dealt with trash once again from Method and A. Harlan Suite getting a tiny bit of healing off, but in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't affect them too much. They still have that 20-second edge over Abrakeydabra that they have to deal with. They can't afford for any more. Any more healing would definitely, put them behind in this dungeon. So we'll have to see if they, are able to cleanly deal with that. Abrakeydabra still has more trash to deal with. They still have one more trash pack to deal with. Sorry, two more probably to deal with. Whereas Method and A just has that one. They could opt to do maybe a Ravager pack plus a small amount of trash with a Cannon Barrage. I'm not quite sure exactly what they plan on doing, but this is a lot closer than it seems, to be honest here, because any one small mistake could spell disaster for that particular team. And Abrakeydabra going for the second trash pull here. Looks like they're doing fine right now. Is the boss? Oh, the boss got. Oh, this boss is healing. That boss has got 15% of worth of healing off. That's a nail in the coffin, I feel like.
Abrakeydabra, I feel like we've seen them struggle before with Sanguine. We talked them up. We've said, you know what, Divine Field, he has so much experience with tanking in the past and in Legion already. He knows exactly how to deal with Sanguine, right? But now we see them struggle so much in this dungeon where Harlan Suite, healed to 70%. You just can't have that on a tourniquet setting. And then I do remember in the past where they're playing, I think it was in the spring season, where they also just struggled so much with Sanguine. I believe it was in a Atal'Dazar or something like that, where the mobs would just constantly heal. So definitely huge mistakes coming out of Abrakeydabra here. This is something that you just can't recover from. And let's be honest here, Method and A, they only had 3 deaths, but they were really not playing as clean as we see them play in other dungeons. So there was a chance for Abrakeydabra to win this, and they just kind of threw it, right? They had way more mistakes than Method and A. Method and A playing a lot cleaner, having, not completely sure, I think the strategies were very similar. I don't think one was a lot faster than the other. I think they were pretty similar. Maybe Method and A is a little bit better, but yeah, that's something you can't make those many mistakes. If the first pull, pretty important. We've seen teams before just have complete wipes, wasting their bloodlust, just losing almost everything just on this very first pull. So both teams are looking to do the same thing, both running down, jumping onto this lantern here, snapping all the mobs on top.
Shrine of the Storm, when it comes to a dungeon, dungeon routes in particular, this is one of the more difficult dungeons in terms of routing, in terms of mechanics you have to deal with. In terms of just boss damage, Tyrannical Shrine of the Storm is nasty in general. And on top of that, you have to make sure you're dealing with all of this trash throughout the entire dungeon. And it's bolstering on top of that. If these teams want to win this series, they're going to have to show absolute masterful execution of the dungeon. Otherwise, why do you deserve to be in the grand final, right? So they have to play. Both of them have to play a lot better than what we've seen out of either team in the first 2 matches. And this is a perfect dungeon for them to kind of face off in.
Yeah, most definitely. This is the last game, right? Best of 3, 1-1, which we don't see that often, right? We see a lot of 2-0s this time around, so having those kind of close game, very interesting to watch. Now, Method and A dealing with this pool a lot faster than Abrakeydabra. Abra struggling a little bit with bolstering, to be honest. Look at those mobs. They're all bolstered. You can see they still have pretty high HP, but they finished off the rest of the mobs already. So definitely not having very good bolstering management at all on Abra's side. Well, Method and A already done. See, here you can actually see the difference in bolstering. You can see how much faster you can be if you do it properly.
Where's Windspeaker going right now? The Windspeaker just ran up towards the boss. Oh, Nerf just pre-pulled it. That's next level. I haven't seen that from any team yet, I don't think.
They already did this with Method U did this, right?
Did Method U do the same thing?
Yeah.
I didn't see them pre-pull. I thought they pulled it with the boss. I didn't see them pre-pull it while they were finishing off the rest of the trash. So, new for me. maybe I'm going to count it as new because it's new for me. It can
This is really smart,
it can
though,
be old
yeah.
for you. I mean, it's a smart strategy, right?
Yeah,
Because
this is
you can pre-set up the haste buff when the boss spawns. That's just pre-thinking. That's really good from them. You don't have to wait for the first haste buff to spawn.
And it's about bolstering too, right? Because there's
Right.
initiates, so you don't have to deal with the apprentices because you just step them off. And then the one rogue tricks the initiates. Tricks is Atal'Dazar, sorry, and the other rogue just reposts and tanks off the initiates just to make sure none of the rest of the mobs are getting bolstered, and you still have the pre-haste as well. So just very smart play by Method and A here coming out. Abrakeydabra, on the other hand, they finally managed to catch up as well to the boss. They are committing their Bloodlust here, while Method and A is holding onto their Bloodlust. Not completely sure what exactly they want to use it on later. Maybe they just want to save it for the intermission to have it a little bit safer. But we'll see what they do. Well, Abra, I don't see Atal'Dazar anywhere. So they definitely do not copy this kind of Method EU strategy that we've seen yesterday. They didn't do the set. They didn't pull the initiates either. So I wonder if they have a different plan in mind.
But they are kind of keeping up on the boss because they did commit their Bloodlust to this pull. So they did have that 40 seconds of haste, whereas, Method and A pretty much got a Bloodlust from having the Atal'Dazar run up most of the time. That being said, Method and A, without the Bloodlust, is going to end up phasing before Abrakeydabra very slightly. And I mean, we don't tend to normally talk about this phase too much because usually it's something that the teams don't wipe to, but we saw a death to it and a wipe to it earlier today, so these Aqualings are pretty important. You have to make sure you're in melee range of them or they'll start casting, water bolts at people that do a lot of damage. It's much better to eat the melees to the face than take the water bolts. So you see them split up around the room to cleave everything down. And, they only have one Aqualing left. They've done a pretty good job of dealing with this phase so far. They're going to get through it probably a lot faster than Abrakeydabra did, just purely because of the cleave they got at the start on those front two Aqualings. So just good execution, and on top of that, they had the rune for the entire phase too. So a lot of extra haste on the entire group. Just pretty solid execution and everything from Method and A right now. And I think they're going to end up bringing these two apprentices to cleave on top of the boss. Hopefully kill the boss first, so they don't end up bolstering the boss as well. But no, this execution is very solid. We're seeing something similar from Abrakeydabra, where they're going to bring in the Shrine Templar as well as these 3 attendants on top of the boss as well. So similar pull styles coming from both teams. I think Method and A's is a little more difficult. They ended up pulling in those same 4 mobs as well, so they got 6 mobs on top of the boss that they're going to be cleaving down. And yeah, I mean, similar pulls from both teams. This is spooky. 6 mobs on top of the boss.
Yeah, this is really spooky for both of those teams. You can see Shakib proccing that cheat death actually, and again, we're in a bolstering setting, right? So you do not want to kill any of those mobs before you finish up the boss. So that's why they pulled them at the very last end. But you see, Aqua's actually getting bolstered on Abra's side here. He's still on 2%. If you bolster him super high, it might just... Okay, there we go. They finished off Aqua's here, but they definitely did bolster him a little bit before he went down. So good job on them to still be able to finish it off. But again, Abra just showing that they're just not dealing with the bolstering really well. Method and A just having much better bolstering management, just being superior in that way. Abrakeydabra now, let's see what they do. Okay, so they just completely skip Atal'Dazar, it seems like it. They might just shut him out off some of the Void Emissary, we'll see. But it seems like Abrakeydabra has a complete different strategy to whatever we've seen before. Method and A definitely doing something similar that we see from Method EU. Smock actually going down. They do have a DK, which also we haven't mentioned, right? DK is not something we usually see in Shrine except in the Eastern region because it's bolstering, so it doesn't really make much sense. But now a Shine going down as well. They don't have a Battle Rust ready. This might just cost them a lot of time. I
mean, they're committed at this point. They can't leave at this section because there's no way for the TK to get back unless he has to commit an invisibility potion. And this is an interesting pull for Method and A, committing their Bloodlust right here on top of all of these apprentices. This is interesting because where we saw Bloodlust pop before was on the Guardian Elemental, so this is a lot of mobs. There's like 10 mobs in here. So as long as they get their AoE CC down properly and they don't take too many of the Void Emissary ticks, they should be totally fine here. This is just mostly tank damage. There's a little bit of magic damage coming out from the Gale Collars as well that cast that, I believe it's the Gales. I'm not sure exactly what the cast is called, but it's a little bit of magic damage to the group as well, but it's also interruptible. On top of that, they really just kind of want to AoE stun or knock back these Whirling Slams that provide area of denial on the ground so that the melee can get full uptime. But this is, I mean, the main thing to look for at this point is bolstering. Everything's pretty low. As long as they're able to keep even cleave down, this pull should be good. I mean, that's the first time I think I've seen that particular version of that pull with the Void Emissary, and it looks like it went perfectly for them.
Yeah, one more thing to note is that I saw something very interesting come out of Abra, a very small interaction here by Smock. He actually is running Mass Route, and they were pulling the initiates to be able to get past there, but instead of just pulling them all away, Smok was just mass rooting them in the back, and you can see it is on cooldown again. So he was going back, making sure the initiates are mass rooted because you don't want to deal with them right now because they bolster. So you definitely do not want to kill them because they have way less HP than any of those other mobs. So just having that mass root here in the back seems pretty smart by Abrakeydabra here, just having a little bit of a strategy change. I like both of these strategies coming out of Method NA and Abra just being a little bit different here. I still do prefer the way Method you dealt with this earlier. It seemed just very clean, very efficient how they did it with the whole snapping on the lantern. But I do like the innovation here by both of those teams. And I just like seeing different strategies and different things and not just, straight up copying someone else. So I do appreciate both of those strategies from Method NA and Abra.
This is a very weird pull from Abrakeydabra. They've got Runecarver Soren in there. It looks like they're going to move him out just so they can AoE all this trash down and not bolster him. I think we've seen this before as well, but this is, this is going to take a little while because they're going to have to mass root everything. Okay, they're opting to just pure single target Runecarver down, and then they'll probably pull him in when he's at like 10 or 20% HP. But, this is not necessarily okay, I was going to say this is not very, effective. It's not very efficient, but they are ending up pulling on all those apprentices that we see Method NA cleave with the Guardian Elemental down. They're just pulling on top of Soren for the cleave instead. That's an interesting choice. Soren probably is the safer of the two mini-bosses to deal with because he does single target damage as well. But the thing is, you also gain the benefit of having the rune on the ground, which reduces your damage taken by, I believe, 75%. So even though you won't be able to interrupt any of the slams or interrupt any of the single target casts from Soren because the emissary is there, you just don't take any damage because you're standing on the rune and you're taking a quarter of the damage you should be.
Yeah. So I don't really dislike this strategy, what they're doing here, because you see Smok just constantly mass roots the mobs that they don't want to deal with. So what they're doing, the strategy is basically like this. So there's a trash pack. Let's say you have 3 mobs that have the same HP, and then you have 1 mob that has a little bit more, a little bit less. So what you're going to do is you have one of them just taunt off the mob that have the different kinds of HP. You just pull it on top of the rest of the mobs, and you just mass root them there. And you just keep mass rooting them until you're done with the trash, and then you shut them out off the aggro, right? So this way, with this mass root, you can just avoid a lot of mobs that you don't want to deal with. Just taunt them on top of the pack, mass root, and ignore, right? So I kind of like this strategy, but I'm not completely sure if this is worth it, considering the setup time. And then on top of that, even with this strategy that Abra is doing here, with pulling away mobs with different kinds of HP, they still just don't deal with bolstering properly. I feel like it just seemed like they're not mismanaging their focus targeting, their AoE things down way too fast. I'm not completely sure if they just deal with the bolstering well enough.
Yeah, Method NA just dealt with that 20 Tide Sage initiate pull pretty clean. They had a little bit of bolstering at the end, which wasn't exactly perfect, but, they didn't end up having their tank go down. You could see Nerf was way away. Didn't want anything to deal with those mobs at all as well. It's kind of funny, whenever the mobs bolster, they increase in size, and the way those initiates look with their hooded figures, it looks like, oh, I'm going to come get you. You better watch out. And they slowly walk as well because they walk the same speed even though they're a giant character model. So it's almost like they're RP walking. It's kind of funny to see. But yeah, Method NA dealing with the big bolstering pull pretty clean, and they're on to Gale Collarfay and Brother Ironhole. And once again, we're seeing this sort of spot on top of the rock where they don't have to worry about dealing with the tornadoes, and they can just freely kick the boss, and they don't have to worry about anything. Now, of course, the mechanic we're talking about that they're skipping here is whenever you kick Gale Collarfay, whenever you interrupt her ability, and she's at 100 energy, she'll spawn one of these tornadoes, and they kind of provide a problem in the fight where you have to make sure that you're you're moving around the room, but you're also dodging the frontal slam from Brother Ironhole, and you're also dodging the tornadoes. This is a big area of denial fight. So just standing on top of this rock completely takes the tornadoes out of the equation and makes the fight a lot easier. Now, the one kind of variation that we're seeing from most teams is whether or not they fully cleave the bosses down or if they just focus Gale Collarfay.
Yeah, that's something we've seen a big difference between teams. Some teams just... I don't dislike finishing off Gale Collarfay because you can pull on top other trash afterwards and just finish it off and cleave it down with Brother Ironhole afterwards. Now, if you played really efficiently and you cleave Brother Ironhole with Gale Collarfay, then yes, you're going to kill the boss faster, but you can't really afford to pull trash on top of it, right? Because if you have to deal with Gale Collarfay and trash on top and Brother Ironhole at the same time, it's just too much to handle, right? So I think both strategies are viable. I think they're also very similar in time gain, so it just depends on what you prefer on doing, in my opinion. Now, Abra seems to be cleaving a little bit more. You can see 68% on Brother Ironhole, while Method NA does choose to focus Faye a little bit more. So I assume Method NA is going to pull the two apprentices that are CC'd in the corner on top of the boss afterwards.
You have to probably get Brother Ironhold maybe a little bit lower first, but then, yeah, I imagine they'll do exactly what you're saying, since they're right there. I mean, it'd be kind of a shame to not pull them when they're right there, right? Right?
Right.
No, okay, they're not doing it. Okay, that's fine. They'll probably get it the next go around and cleave it down with the boss. But yeah, I mean, this is I think, I mean, both strategies are totally fine. I think they both work just fine. And if you do end up wanting to kill that trash at some point, it makes sense to cleave it with the boss when you have the ability to. So, I mean, I don't think at the end of the day either of them is necessarily better. It's just kind of, you know, a preference of what you like doing.
Oh, okay. So, do you think that Abra wants to one-face the boss with the DK? Do you think that's the reason behind it?
Ooh, I mean, they probably do more burst damage in the window than either Rogue or Windwalker do, so it could be very close. We'll definitely be able to find out whenever they pull the boss, because they'll want to commit to doing it when they pull the boss. So normally we'll see teams pull a pack of eels in the first phase 1, and they'll get the boss to maybe like 75 or 80%. If they full-on commit to single targeting the boss down, and they get him like to 70% or lower, yeah, then they're definitely going for it. That'll be interesting to see. We'll have to keep an eye out for that.
And they could even pull the eels after the first intermission to give a shine more faster might stacks, right?
Ooh, yeah, they could do that.
Theory, so to increase the single target damage. But we'll see what they do later on, because it just seems weird to me to run a DK here specifically, just because it doesn't seem very efficient with the bowstring, and you know, just in general it doesn't seem so good in this dungeon. So we'll see if there's a plan that they want to do later on. Either way, Method and A finished off Brother Ironhold and Gale Color Fate. They did Shadow Melt off the trash here and skipped a bunch, and now they're gonna have to deal with this bridge trash. Now there's some difficult packs that you can deal with this. Definitely things that we've seen go wrong, specifically for Method and A. It was with different affixes though, so they're set. But on this very tentacle pack, we did see Method and A. Not sure if it was a full team wipe, but they had the tank go down and GB go down. I remember.
Okay, now I'm totally open to being corrected here, because it's happened at least 3 times today already. I feel like there's an entire cup that I missed where teams came up with new strategies at this point. I don't even know what year it is anymore. They just skipped all the enforcers. Have we seen a team skip the entire enforcer pool before?
I don't think so, actually.
I think that's new. I don't think we've seen that.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, hopefully, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong again. You know, I'm not always right, obviously, but I don't think we've seen a team completely skip the enforcer pulls before. So interesting new tech to see from Method and A, because that's a really dangerous pull. Like, whenever you talk about how you're setting up a dungeon, your number one priority is trying to do the dungeon as quickly as possible and as few pulls as possible, but also you want to try to do it in as few dangerous pulls as possible. And that enforcer pull, that was like putting the entire dungeon on one giant pressure point, and if you mess it up, you had to run back a long ways, and it was kind of overly dangerous for the pulls, for what they were doing and the mob count it was giving. So it's interesting to see them change up their pull style and actually pull more trash in sort of the Rune Carver area, instead of just trying to do that giant enforcer pull. I think that's a really interesting optimization they made.
Yeah, I like it. And they didn't even have to pull that much on the bridge either. They were definitely just doing more trash at the very start of the dungeon to be able to skip this enforcer pull. I like the adaptation from Method and A. Now, Abrakeydabra, again, having a death on a skip. Ashine, unfortunately, did not have the Shadow Melt ready, which was definitely a mistake, because there was nothing really they needed the Shadow Melt on before, so I'm not completely sure why it wasn't cooldown. Either way, another death. And this is like the name of the game for Abra, really. They have those constant deaths. Like, it might not be a full team wipe, but they just, you know, lose one here on a skip, have to rest them up. It just costs them too much time. And this is why you can see Method and A being pretty far ahead at this point. They're 86% trash. They're fighting Lord Stormsong. So, and 0 deaths, for that matter, right? Method and A has a 100% clean run so far. And they're pretty fast. I mean, look at the time. 15 minutes in, and they're 80% on Lord Stormsong.
Oh, they're crushing the dungeon right now. Let's see if they get the Ancient Mindbender RNG too. That'd be pretty great if they don't get it here. We'll see. The rogues are going to cloak when the cast comes out, and if we don't see any Ancient Mindbenders come out, it means they got the RNG, and it looks like they got it. No Mindbender. The cloaks paid off. Do I only see... Wait.
Bless RNG.
Okay, both cloaks were used. I only saw one cloak out. I only saw one of the rogues use their cloak in-game, so they must have both gone out, and one was a little offset. So, yeah, a little good RNG from them. That means the next Ancient Mindbender will be able to instantly break themselves out with the orb, and that just lets the fight go even that much faster. So, bless RNG, good for them.
Yeah, so Abra, they're on the Dwellers now too, so they're in the same room, still pretty far behind, 50%, and a boss on a tyrannical setting is a lot of time, so Abra needs to do something if they want to catch up. At this point, like, I feel like even if they would one-face the last boss, that's not even going to be enough, right? Just because they're 20 seconds behind with death timers, and they're just behind in raw dungeon speed as well. So I don't think even one-facing the last boss would be enough at this point.
And that's the benefit of having all those extra orbs. Lady was able to pretty much instantly get himself down to like 52% and then just let the residual rogue cleave break him out. He didn't want to actually get stunned coming out of the Ancient Mind Bender, because if you do get hit by one of those purple orbs and you're not mind controlled, you get something like a 5-second stun, which is, you don't want to be stunned. You want to be doing damage. So yeah, letting the rogues cleave him out, letting the tank cleave him out at that point, definitely the smart play. Good to see that from them. They'll have to actually do a little bit extra cleave to this next Ancient Mindbender should they get it, but it looks like they're almost at the point where they should be able to just beat it or just barely get it at the end, so they shouldn't have to worry about it. Getting it at 10% here. And yeah, I went on the rogue. He's just going to hop in the pool and let the pool deal damage to him. That's kind of the smart play as well. You'll see him slowly ticking down there. Pool does about 5% per tick, and he'll hop out 5% left. Eat one of those orbs to the face, and he should be out pretty clean. Just textbook mechanics from them. I would say textbook. Almost practice cheat death from hitting too many orbs. Not the greatest, but that was a little spooky. But no, still has a cheat death available.
It was the Rip Mind. It was actually just unlucky.
Was it the Rip Mind?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
bad RNG.
okay.
Bad RNG.
Bad RNG. They got the good RNG from the Mind Bender. Bad RNG from the Rip Mind.
Yeah.
Didn't proc cheat death, so we're all good.
Yeah, there we go. Now, Abra, we're a little bit unfortunate. I mean, they only have one rogue, right? So for Method A was 50-50 on who gets the Mind Bender, and for Abra, definitely, a little bit unlucky that he went on not a rogue, but it was Smuck after all. So Smuck, the best target to be hit by the Mind Bender, as long as if it doesn't go into the cloak, then it's Smuck, the second best target to get hit. So not that bad for Abra. Abra saving their Bloodlust for quite a while here. It did get back up while they were fighting the second boss, while they were fighting Gale Color Fae, and they were holding it this whole time, so I assume that they want to save it no matter what for the last boss. But Method A, I mean, they're already on their way to the last boss. Hopefully no one is getting stunned. Doesn't seem like it, as they're all arriving here. They're doing this very similar pull that we've seen by many teams before, where they just pull these eels on top of the boss because they do not actually bolster.
And I think it's pretty safe to say that outside of like insane 5-buff RNG that they're not going to 2-phase this boss, or 1-phase this boss rather, because we've seen so many teams even attempt it on 17 and they weren't able to do it. With the extra added level onto the dungeon, it would take some pretty obscene single target DPS to actually pull it off. So, I mean, the boss is going to be here barely at 80%, 82% when he phases, and last week when we saw teams even attempt at 1-phasing it, getting into the single digits, they had to have the boss in the mid-70s to even have a shot. So Method in it looks like they're just committing to 2-phasing this boss. They're not going to have a chance at 1-phasing. I mean, we'll have to see. Abrakeydabra with the Unholy Decay, they might have a shot at pulling it off, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, again, I mean, even at this point, if they manage to 1-phase, as long as Method A does not have any more mistakes, like any more deaths or anything like that, they're still not gonna be ahead, right? So Abra, I'm not sure if this is their whole strategy, which I'm not completely sure yet, but if their whole strategy is, running a DK to be able to 1-phase the last boss, they have to rethink it, because it seems like it's not worth it. Even if they manage it now, they're just not going to be ahead. So just losing a lot of time with mismanaging bolstering, which, can definitely be the DK's fault. I've been talking about Abra not managing bolstering properly, and that just might be, it might be the DK. He can't really control the DK damage as well as he can control other damage dealers' damage. Now they are pulling the eels on top here on Abra's side, so not completely sure if they still want to run this strategy or not. This is something that we talked about earlier, which might not be as efficient for single target boss DPS.
Like you mentioned, it's still good for the Unholy Decay, and they are going to have the boss significantly lower than Method and A had it. They're already at 80%, and the boss hasn't even started casting yet, so we'll have to see how low that gets. I think if it gets sub 75, they might have a shot with the Unholy Decay. Yeah, it's 75 right now, 74, so that's really low. They might have a chance of 1-phasing this, and that'd be really great to see from them. That being said, Method and A is already so far ahead that I don't even know if it's going to matter at this point. I still kind of want to see it, just for me.
Yeah.
But Method and A, they're pretty committed to getting the second phase right now. They're already halfway through this phase. They're probably going to get the boss into the low 20s, high teens, and then they'll just have to deal with one more intermission, then they can finish the boss off afterwards. Abrakeydabra, however, they still have to deal with both the intermission phase, the 3 mobs on top, and then they'll probably end up pulling the rest of their trash count in the form of the eels on top of the boss, and that's when that Unholy Decay is really going to have to do work. He'll have to pop off with those Festermite stacks, the Army of the Dead, all of his cooldowns with the Bloodlust. We're going to have to see some massive damage come out of him if they even want to have a chance.
Alright, so Method and A did proc their second intermission phase. Now, we're going to have to see what Abrakeydabra does here. They are actually dealing with the trash first. You cannot pull this trash on top of the boss, because this trash does bolster, the eels do not, but this trash does. So they want to finish off this trash and then pull the boss maybe Method of Day actually just finishes off the boss and finishes the dungeon before Abra can even show what they can do with their Bloodlust. That would be very unfortunate. But yeah, Method of Day, they should be very soon. They should be done soon with their mission, and then they only have the 20% left.
Yeah, I think they're going to finish the boss.
Yeah, we're not going to see
That's
it.
a shame. Yo, I want to see.
Can we just continue the
JB,
QB?
stop. I know you're watching the stream. JB, just wait. You won the dungeon. Just wait. I want to see this. Come on. Show me the burst damage, Ash.
There we go.
I want to see it. Show me the burst damage. We're gonna see their burst damage at the very least. We'll see what they could have done, like sort of an idea, but we're not.
Oh, see, they're actually pulling the eels, so they didn't interrupt the boss yet. So this is definitely their strategy. This is 100% the play. They are going for the one phase. As you can see, the eels just coming in. You can see they were waiting a little bit. The Bloodlust being popped as well, and now we're probably gonna see Ashine just doing so much damage. But Method and they're done.
I think they had a chance. I mean,
is one of the most changed, probably the most changed dungeon from its Season 2 counterpart. As we know, the cannons no longer are unlimited shots. You only get 5 shots per cannon, so a lot of clever play needs to be done up there. But let's head into this Tol Dagor right now. Massive pull coming in here for Paid For Fem. Keep in mind, this is a necrotic affix right now. That is a lot of necrotic stacks on him. He is running Dwarf, so he has one get out of jail free card with that stone form right now. Bloodlust already running for Paid For Fem and for Fly Me Out, who's done a much more modest pull.
Yeah, and I mean, Paid For Fem running that DK, right? So having this red rogue just makes it possible to do those kind of pulls and actually get a single target increase. And you can see the DPS. He's doing more than 1 million DPS. Insane damage coming out of Shelley here. Crazy how low they can get the boss as well. Now, sometimes the huge numbers that you can see from the DKs coming out, they're not all efficient, right? Because it's a huge amount of DPS, but a lot of it is AoE on those like small little mobs on the drones that, you know, if the DK wouldn't kill them, then someone else would. So they're a little bit misleading, but you can look at the damage on the boss. You can see the percentages. So Paid For Fem definitely just having a decent amount more boss DPS as well.
Well, I mean, I'd argue in this case it is really important to kill all these residual mobs because we're in a necrotic affix. So the tank only has so much time to live really before you start needing to run around and do all crazy kinds of kiting techniques. He's already used the stone form. That's not going to be up again for around 90 seconds. Stone form's already been used on the side of Fly Me Out for suffering as well. 10% difference between the two boss, but not just that. Staggeringly enough, 12% trash difference. That's one of the main take-home messages of that massive pull coming in for Paid For Fem, who's looking, well, they're showing why they were a 12-minute faster time in Tol Dagor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still just in awe of the number. It was like 1.5 million DPS. Just insane damage for the DKs here. We will see what they do later on. I mean, later on in the dungeon, there's not that many pulls where you can make use of the huge AoE from the DK, right? Because later on, the trash is just too difficult to pull so much on top of a boss. Like, you don't want to pull a lot on top of just Howlis. We've seen so many teams just wipe to that later. And then there's also just the cannon part where, you know, the melees can't even go into DPS. So we'll see what they do with this DK later on. But they're already done with the boss. They're probably gonna Shadow Melt or do some sort of skips here. Now, unfortunately, Fem, the tank, is not a Night Elf. He is a Dwarf, as we mentioned before, because of the necrotic. So if they do some sort of skip, they have to make Fem just, you know, just die and rest him up.
In this case, he will be the sacrificial lamb, and there he goes right now. 1 death on the board, intended for Paid For Fem. Fly Me Out will have to do the same thing as Suffering is also running a Dwarf. They just need it for that necrotic drop, especially in the jail. I mean, they already needed it on the outside because of the heavy pull that they were doing, but they will certainly need it on the inside of the jail where there's not really a lot of room to kite in the first place. Very close quarters combat, if you will. So they'll need access to that stone form later, something that Suffering now has available to them. And Fems actually just came up as well as they rear up in Jess Howlis's floor here. Quick paralyze on that front caster right there, the C speaker, as they get ready for a big pull. I think they're pulling just through the... Oh, no, they're not. So they're actually just doing a pretty standard pull right now, and I guess waiting for Jess for the pull, because we usually see some teams kind of pull it through the wall and deal with it that way, deal with the trash while Jess makes the rounds.
Yeah, you see... Shell actually having more aggro than Fem there at the very start, getting a lot of necrotic stacks and getting this debuff from the arsonist that you can see on Shell here. Now, these are some trash pulls that are pretty difficult to deal with just because of the C speakers, but we actually just see arsonists being pulled here by Paid For Fem. So I assume that they just want to get deal with those first and then pull Jess Howlis through. As you can see, Ricky is the one who can chi burst. You can see right now did he miss it? I don't think he actually got the boss. Maybe he didn't hit it properly or something went wrong. It seemed like they wanted to pull the boss, but it just didn't work.
I think he was just testing you to make sure that, we were watching him and he missed the boss on purpose. Just want to build some tension, kind of chew away at that 12-minute lead that they had in the time trials. Fly Me Out here, 7% trash. Finally getting some of their pulls in on Jess Hallis's floor here. You can see an emissary in the far corner there as well for them. And then finally, Jess indeed was pulled here. Seaspeaker about to be killed here for Pain for Fen. Jess Hallis will, of course, reach the transition phase at 70% and then run through the cage and then do the entire round, grab the jail, grab whatever mobs they need to, and then come right back. So the team can just kind of park here and have an easy time in the dungeon.
Yeah, and you see, Jess Hallis is a boss that in theory is not that dangerous, but if you do those kind of pulls where you have a bunch of trash on top, or you want to min-max DPS properly and just, go line of sight last second, we've seen those teams have some trouble, especially with some affixes, which in this case not really a big deal because, Volcanic is not going to do anything, and Necrotic is only really a problem for the tank. And with the Dwarf racial, it should be fine for Fem to deal with it. So affixes this time around not going to be a huge deal. There's still things that can go wrong. If you miss some sort of interrupt on Bobby, if you get a fear through, you get hit by the daggers, which definitely one-shot you. Even in a 45 setting, the daggers will just straight up kill you if you get hit by them. So definitely still want to watch out. And you can see the amount of trash they pull on top here as well. They want to make sure they deal with the Seaspeakers properly, and they want to make sure that they deal with the Necrotic properly.
Yeah, this is a very dangerous pull coming in here for Pain for Fem right now. He has 33 stacks in Necrotic. He's going to need to clean that off with Stoneform real soon because he's going to be virtually unhealable. There it is. Stoneform finally popped. Not available again for another 120 seconds, 2 minutes, and Fem starts accruing some more stacks right now. Fortunately, most of the trash is dead, so the only Necrotic stacks he's getting are the natural ones that you will get throughout the fight because Jess and Bobby are both active. But Jess down to 28% here for Pain for Fem with 30% trash. Fly Me Out has now just started the transition phase on Jess Hallis at 69%, 13% trash on the board, and I'm starting to see a bit why Fly Me Out is we're so slow on time trials. Like, they're only 13% trash right now, so I have a feeling that part of their strategy is kind of a Hail Mary with the cannons, maybe. They're trying to play it well, and it is tougher to pull off, way tougher now at least, to pull off that cannon play with only 5 shots on each cannon. So we'll see exactly what they have up their sleeve after this boss. Hopefully the rest goes well for them, as Pain for Fem does down the second boss here.
So yeah, Pain for Fem definitely a lot faster here. Not only do they kill the boss first, but they also have 17% more trash percentage here. Now, I do believe Pain for Fem is actually going to be the team that does do a pretty big cannon pull. We've seen this before in practice where people would just gather up a bunch of mobs, they use both of the cannons to deal with it. They will just drag it through, as they already are in the cannon area. We have a calculated death again from Fem because he's a dwarf, so there's no way that he can skip these mobs because they have true sight, so you can't trap through it either. Now we see the masters come up, and now we're probably going to see a huge pull come in. There's a lot of percentage that they still need because they only have 30%, but they have to deal with this Void Touch emissary first.
Void Touch, yeah, it was present here in the previous week as well. You want to get rid of that as quickly as possible. Likely there will be one upstairs right above them near the final boss's floor, excuse me. So we'll have to see what they do. Fly Me Out, though, having some troubles here as Jess Hallis reaches 10%. Unfortunately, Shadow has fallen. They do have the battle res, but the boss is low enough that they figure there's no point wasting it right now. Oh, of course, they actually don't have a battle res. Yeah. What am I even saying? What kind of world do we live in where there's no Resta Druid on the team or DK? So they actually don't even have the option to battle res. But fortunately for them, the boss was low. So if they had one, Nigger, I bet they wouldn't have used it.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Definitely would have saved it for some shenanigans later on with the cannons, right? Because lots of times in this cannon area, we see people just go down because multiple things, right? The person in cannon dies because, aggro, or there's a volcanic spawning, and so on. And you're in combat for a very long time in this cannon area just because it takes a lot of time to finish them off with the cannon. So having that battle rest definitely helps you later on. But again, Fly Me Out just, unfortunately does not even have anyone who could battle rest, even if they wanted to. They need 2 people to go down here as to do the skip on Fly Me Outside because their tank is a dwarf as well, which makes a lot more sense for Fly Me Out, to be honest, because Paladin can't be an Night Elf, right? So they need to rest one person either way, so they might as well, you know, just have the tank die as well.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Might as well just res 2, and by that virtue, might as well just have the whole team wipe. But I mean, why not? Screw it. 15% here for Fly Me Out. They do have to chisel through a lot of the trash. I guess that's why they didn't do as much trash early in the dungeon. It is trash that they have to go through that Pain for Fem did not, as they only had to res Fem and had the benefit of the large range AoE res from Muo when Fem Clap did go down. Pain for Fem here, getting all the mobs nicely crowded into the hallway here, trying to make efficiency of grouping them together. Ursul's Vortex has gone down at the same time of Ring of Peace. I'm not sure if I like that so much. They kind of overlap double CC there. None of the mobs really got any interaction.
Oh, nice.
Everything worked out for them, but none of the mobs really got any interaction with that ROP. So if they lived a bit longer, that could have been pretty disastrous. Fortunately, it was actually quite clean from them. Actually, probably one of the cleanest we've seen from this first cannon.
Beautiful.
So that's really nice from them. 75% for them right now as they start to head down towards the Emissary of Tide, surrounded by 2 of the casters on the side here, and then they'll have one more set of trash. Sorry, 2 more packs of trash before Knight Captain Valyria, and that should be the remaining percent needed before they start moving up to the final boss.
Yeah, you even saw the very last shot. I mean, one thing to mention, in case some of you guys don't know, those cannons actually got nerfed, so they only have 5 shots available to them. In the past, it was unlimited shots, so what do you see teams doing? They would just, you know, constantly pull trash on top, the cannons would just finish it off. But with those 5 shots that you only have on each cannon, you have to make this a lot more calculated. You want to make sure that all the mobs that you want to kill with the cannons are perfectly gathered up, as you can see right now for Pain for Fem. And they dealt with it so perfectly on the first cannon. They even almost wasted one of the last shots on only 3 mobs that were left. I mean, usually you want to use it on a lot more, but because they played it so perfectly, they could waste one last shot on 3 mobs, and they still have some left, I believe, in this last cannon, so they can deal with this side of the trash as well.
They do. You can see Barra waiting there by the cannon right now. He's likely waiting for his Tricks of the Trade to come up before he jumps back in. Dealt well with the Arcane Emissary on the side as Fem tanks this Officer pack right in front of the cannon. And there's a couple more shots from the cannon. They will have to raw chew through the rest of these mobs. We've also seen some teams actually just grab these right on top of Knight Captain Valyria and cleave everything down together. But with Necrotic and Fortified on this map, I don't think they're very comfortable doing that. It looks like they're just going to commit to doing a slower but safer tactic here, finishing off the trash and then heading over to the 3rd boss for Knight Captain Valyria. Call Me Out has now reached the cannon trash on the side. 3 deaths on the board for them. A lot of them purposeful deaths because they did need to do that double skip. Some of the double skips that we were talking about earlier. Suffering, looks like he's having a lot of suffering himself right now, dipping quite low. A lot of necrotic stacks and double frontal as well from the Rifleman. A lot of damage going in on the group too. They did manage to kill off the Void Emissary and finally stabilize here as Elsmere pumps as much healing as he can out. Group is finally stable and they're getting ready for their cannon play in a moment.
Yeah, this is here we can finally see how those teams get these fast times, right? We see in the time trials we saw the first team have like a 13 minutes Tol Dagor, so this is exactly how they do it. They just gain an insane amount of trash by playing the cannon part perfectly. Now Fly Me Out unfortunately have a tank death, and again they don't have a battle rest available to them, so they have to finish off the rest of this trash that they're in combat with without the tank. They're struggling a little bit. You see Elsmere are very low on the rogue as well, but they should be able to finish it off by just, you know, cutting it back and forth and finishing up with the cannon, maybe.
I don't know if they will. Well, I mean, they will, but there's a Marine that's at 60% HP on the side there. That's where a lot of the suppression frontal stacks accrued on Suffering, and that's what caused a lot of the issue. It seems that we had a Shadow Meld come in from Shadow. Too many shadows. A Shadow Meld came in from Shadow Monk there. Well played by them in order to get out of combat with this last mob. As a result, he was able to rest Suffering, the warrior tank, and then they were able to continue and finish the pull properly. They would have had to get the tank up anyways after. So 2 deaths here for Pain for Fem as they're 24% on Knight Captain Valyria. Do an excellent job with the barrels and making sure to pre-move the boss to the sides. Of course, I say that and they don't do that. Now it's sitting there, and the melee are very scared to go in, except for the rogue, who has increased melee range. 13% on the boss here, 95% trash. They actually don't even need the majority of the trash leading up to the final boss of the dungeon here. Fly Me Out is at 31%. It looks like they're getting ready for their big pull.
Yeah, Pain for Fem just showing why they have this fast of a time trial time. Definitely way far ahead compared to Fly Me Out. You know, the trash difference that they have right now, 95 versus 33, is not even a huge deal because we saw Pain for Fem get 60% of trash within like 2 minutes. So in theory, if Fly Me Out would do the same strategy as Pain for Fem, they could be catching up pretty fast. But they clearly do not do this kind of strategy. As you can see, they just slowly go through the mobs. They don't really want to do this whole gathering up the mobs and cannon strategy. So Fly Me Out just generally being lower in Tol Dagor. Maybe they put most of their practice in Underrot and Freehold, as they saw with the time trial times, you know, a comparison from 27 minutes to like 13 minutes. They were like, you know what? This is a huge thing. We can't really do this. We can't really do 13 minutes in Tol Dagor. So let's focus on Underrot and Freehold, which are the 2 dungeons left in this series.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
14, over double the time difference between them. So I think they're just cutting their losses for this dungeon. I mean, they're just pulling so slowly. Every time I look over at their screen, it's just 1, maybe 2 packs tops. They haven't even, I keep saying they're starting their big pull. Here comes the big pull with the cannon. Nowhere to be seen just yet. Pain for Fem has dealt with their trash 100%. 2 deaths still on the board as Ricky channels his Latent Arcana trinket. 30 seconds of quite a bit, about 2.53k of primary stat buff. Bloodlust is pulled here for Pain for Fem as they pull Overseer Corgi over to the side and start cleaving him down. Now, Nagura, I know you're very happy about this usually, so please tell us about the doubles that can occur on this fight.
So, I mean, the biggest fear about this boss are those bursting rings that you just saw go out. They always target range DPS, or they favor range DPS, but since there's only one range in the whole group, it's only going to be Nevo who gets it every single time. You can see him in the right corner here, switching into bear form, and the other 2 burstings, they are going to be on random targets. Now we actually saw a double happening. A double means that you get 2 of those bursting rounds in a row. Not right after one another, but very fast after one another. And then it's just more difficult to heal them up because it does a huge burst of damage and initial damage, and then it also applies a dot afterwards. So you have to heal the dot up way faster if you get a double compared to if you just have a single. So Nevo actually getting another double here, having some travel healing, having to actually use that tranquility to make sure everyone stays alive. But it is a fortified setting compared to the tyrannical that we had in the spring season. So even with the doubles, the healer should be able to heal it away.
Yeah, a bit of a slot fest there at the end as well. Ricky moved too much, and the Heartstopper Venom actually built up its full charge, which stuns you for 8 seconds, and the only way to get out of that is with an immunity, which of course you don't have as a monk. Luckily, you didn't get stunned in the wave. The cannon certainly don't want to be getting hit by that. Another full dot round going out on the team right now. Overseer Corgus at 23%. Fly Me Out. Looks like they're finally starting to make some moves on the cannon, but way too little, way too late right now. They hit 54% trash. Looks like it's a bit scary there for pull. They're trying to LOS, line of sight some of the mobs there right now. Corgus, 13%. We're about to finish the match here for Pain for Fem.
Yeah, another double. I mean, they're actually being pretty unlucky here for Pain for Fem, but Nevo, no problem healing it away. Now, if you look at their time here, 16:20, slower than time trials, but Pain for Fem now showing up.
Obviously, Divine Field played a few years ago. But nonetheless, Pain for Fem Fly Me Out here in the Underrot again. Hopefully, Shelly can come to terms with the demons that he had earlier in the Underrot. And what I wanted to mention earlier, Nagura, is that, you know, just like Wolf Disco, you know, these guys haven't really played these classes on live. They haven't practiced all of them. So to just pick up and learn on the fly like that is very important for them. Fly Me Out starting off just with the Maggot on the side. I'm not really sure. A pretty slow pull coming out of them right now as we see a Protection Paladin, Holy Paladin, and as you mentioned, the Fury Warrior.
Yeah, I'm still gonna see what the Fury Warrior does for the group here. I mean, we will see. I mean, they do give the Shout, right? Since they don't have the Proud Warrior, so they have the Battle Shout, which does increase everyone else's damage. So maybe that's one reason why they're playing the Warrior. Now, for Pain for Fem, we have seen them before in Underrot, right? Earlier today, they played Underrot already, and they had huge mistakes. They had full team wipes coming in. They had to reset Krogma. They had a full team wipe on Sancha. They just had many, many mistakes. They lost against No Girls Allowed, which was a very important match. And this one is also very important because if they lose the series, they're just going to be completely out of the tournament, right? And they're gonna not going to get any points whatsoever. So Pain for Fem definitely needs to show a better performance in this Underrot than they did earlier today. Even if, I mean, Fly Me Out is a team, we haven't really seen very fast strategies from them at all, but if Pain for Fem has 20 deaths, then Fly Me Out all of a sudden with their safe strategies is gonna pull it off.
Yeah, certainly they will. And Pain for Fem has already rifled through as they're on Elder Liaxon now at 75%. Skipping, of course, a Mask Trash. They're dealing with Liaxon, then likely to do, especially with playing around that Unholy DK as we saw in the previous series they've done Underrot once today, do a sizable pull over in Kragma's room. That really seems to be the choke point for a lot of teams and a lot of the danger for them. Fly Me Out, similar to what we saw on Tol Dagor, moving fairly slowly again, kind of respecting that they're hierarchy runners on live. And we were just talking about it during the break. I mean, hierarchies does not translate into MDI running. It's a different type of dungeon running, and they're just moving too safely right now. So hopefully they can get some bigger pulls going in Kragmaw's room. They have a prop paladin. It's hugely beneficial for that room in terms of just AoE damage mitigation. And Avenger's Shield. Avenger's Shield is an interrupt and a silence, and you can spam it. I'm not sure why he's not running First Avenger on it. Of course, I'm sure they've practiced it otherwise, but he did opt for Crusader's Judgment, and I mean, it's going to be beneficial on the first boss and beneficial, of course, on all the ads that you need to interrupt in Kragmaw's room, Nagura, having that prop paladin in there.
Yeah, I just fear that the reason why they're running this setup is because it's just safer, right? I mean, Paladin, all those interrupts, first boss safer, everything just seems more stable and safe, but is it going to be, like, are they actually going to do those bigger pulls because they're running the safer comp? That's what they have to do. If they're going to be playing this, then we need to see some bigger pulls later on, because right now, they haven't even engaged Atal'Dazar yet, and Pain for Fem is already done with this boss without even having to commit the Bloodlust. So, Pain for Fem doing this huge pull that we've talked about before, they are committing their Bloodlust here, and the reason why we see 2 human racials on Ricky, and I believe on Barrow as well, is that to get rid of this Lasher cast that stuns you. The one human racial, the active human racial, kind of works like a PvP trinket and gets rid of all of the CC on you. So if there's a cast going through in the Lasher, which can't really be avoided because of the Emissary of Tides, if it's on Ricky, he can use the human racial to get out of it. And if it's on anyone other than Ricky, then Ricky can dispel it because it's a disease.
It is a disease indeed. And yeah, it's kind of just a get out of jail free card with that Dispel, and it frees up the interrupt, as you mentioned. Liaxa here at 45%, they have finally committed their Bloodlust to this, something that Pain for Fem used their Bloodlust for, this very dangerous trash in Kragmaw's room, and they're doing quite a much better job, at least compared to the first time that they did the dungeon earlier today. Everything's looking great, 0 deaths on the board. Shella feeling a lot more comfortable in this Unholy DK role. A lot of damage coming out from that Screecher on the side there, though. They're really going to have to handle that because Mew's running around in circles, and they've aggroed more trash, a Maggot on top of it, so they're going to need to babysit not only the Maggot, make sure that that Rotten Bile cast does not cleave the group, but that Blood Swarmer is going to start doing work if they don't. I mean, it's mailing for over half health on people, so they're going to have to be careful with that one.
Yeah, and you see just all the stuns coming out of the Lashes because of the Emissary of Tides not being able to actually interrupt any of them, and Ricky falling behind with the Dispel, because Dispel obviously, just has a cooldown. So at some point he just runs out, can't Dispel anymore. You saw Shella just standing there in a stun for what seemed like forever, but they still managed to finish off this pull, so well done by them. And we've seen them struggle a lot on Kragmaw later on. So we'll see if they actually manage to clean up their pull, because we saw them having to reset the boss. We saw Fem going down, I believe. So either they want to do a smaller pull, which if they know how far behind Fly Me Out is at this point, they could do, or they just, clean up their pool, have a better execution.
Better execution indeed. Lay on Hands going out on Shadow for the Rogue for Fly Me Out. He dipped very, very low, and not just that, but he also procced his Cheat Death right on that pull there, so they weren't stable, but Shella, I guess we spoke too soon, going down, unfortunately, for Pain for Fem. They do have the Battle Res available from Mew. They're running a double Battle Res comp right now, so no Battle Res available for them for about 4.5 minutes as they try to chew through the rest of this very dangerous Kragmaw trash right now. Probably going to hit about 50% trash on the board before engaging with the boss, and 50 on the dot. Man, look at that. Fly Me Out, Fly Me Out, 33%. Even with all their cooldowns popped, the entire group popped their offensive cooldowns, they only still pulled about 2-ish packs worth in Kragmaw's room, so still a much smaller pull than Pain for Fem did with their Bloodlust at the beginning of the dungeon. Now they've combined the Death Speaker with the Reanimated Guardians and, of course, the rest of the trash here in Kragmaw's room. I don't think that there's a Emissary of the Tides actually in this pack they're cleaving, so I'm not sure why nobody interrupted the Raised Dead cast, but all of a sudden they just have an extra Guardian for no reason. Yeah,
this exact same thing happened the last time around, where they just did not interrupt it. Now, the last time they did engage the boss, okay, so they're doing the same thing here. They do not pull smaller. Maybe I would have liked them to not pull the boss here, just because, the last time they struggled here and they actually had a full team wipe. Because if you really pay attention to what Fly Me Out is doing, they definitely are just playing it safe. So they're kind of hoping for Pain for Fem to make some of those big mistakes they made earlier around today when they were playing Underrot, and then Fly Me Out can just win the game all of a sudden, even though they just play slower and safer. But if they don't have any of those huge mistakes, then they just might be the ones who are winning. So Pain for Fem, they just need to go slower with those risky pulls, or they need to pull them off perfectly. And this time around, thankfully, they did manage to pull it perfectly, as all the trash is down, so they only have to deal with Kragmaw.
almost perfectly. They did have one death on Shella, so they'll get that battle res back soon. We do have an Emissary of the Tides in the pack here. It's just CC'd off to the side. Now, not really sure, you know, I guess I was just actually about to mention, I'm not really sure why they're not combining the Emissary with the boss. It's not going to affect the boss in any way. The only dangerous thing is you got to just watch Fem's health, but as a warrior, you can heroic leap and charge back in during this indigestion, which you actually just completely just strafed it, so you don't even need to do that high of mobility. So as long as you watch the tank here and it's a fortified environment, should be totally fine. Kragmaw here, 52% for Pain for Fem and 61% trash. Fly Me Out just once again slow and steady. Warrior dipping to 4% health there. Managed to heal him right back up. He got caught in a bit of the rotten bile before somebody actually did something to crowd control it. And just they're going to hit about 50% here. Everything is clean from them, as you mentioned, Nagura, but just way too slow, way too safe.
Yeah, and it also just seems like their setup, especially for this very specific room, just seems so good, right? Because they have 2 disease dispels. They have 2 paladins. Both of them are able to dispel the disease. So they, in theory, would be able to pull the Emissary of Tides on top of the Lashers and just let all the casts go through, because they have double dispel. So what is really going to happen, right? And also have their Kane Brilliance, their Kane Torrent, from the Blood Elf helping them as well. It just seems as like they're just going too slow, in my opinion. Maybe they just didn't have enough time to practice those bigger pulls. Either way, Pain for Fem, 62%. They are on their way to finish off Kragmaw here. Now, we'll see what they do after this boss, because earlier when they played it, they had a full team wipe on Sancha, so not completely sure if they're gonna try to do the same pull again, where they pull all the trash on top of Sancha, if they're gonna risk it at all, or if they just wanna finish off the trash first and then engage Sancha.
Yeah, we'll have to see in a moment. Kragmaw finally goes down here for Pain for Fem, and you know, and just to add on top of that, we have interrupts from the Paladin as well with Avenger's Shield, so that they have a ton of crowd control and interrupts in this room for Fly Me Out, but they're opting just not to use the resources to the maximum of their potential. Mass Stealth coming in here for Pain for Fem, who sits at 62%. They've dealt with Kragmaw and are channeling their Arcana Trinket on the side, getting ready for a pretty sizable pull. There is an explosive on the side. Hopefully somebody saw it. There it goes. We do have Bearer, of course, pistol shot it down and make sure to finish it off, as the Defiler is probably one of the focus of their kill early on, as they do have a Emissary of Tides on the side, and Mio probably does not want to stay rooting every 8 seconds.
Yeah, Mevo actually dispelling Shella, so we know that Shella is actually Mevo's favorite, because the curse does decrease your damage done, so you want to dispel your favorite damage dealer or your tank. But Mevo dispelling Shella here. Fly Me Out does have 1 death actually. Their rope going down. They still don't have a battle rest, even with all those, you know, comp changes. They just really don't like battle rest classes. It seems like they just want to play, you know, perfectly. Maybe
Blizzard should just give battle rest to Paladins. I think that would make complete sense. Or Warriors, or, you know, something that doesn't... Or everyone. If only some kind of item existed that would res you when you die.
That would be crazy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Some type of pylon-shaped item.
I don't know
First going down here for Fly Me Out yet again. Not yet again, sorry. He almost died earlier, the 4%. This time the job was finished by the trash here. So first going down, no battle res, as Nagura mentioned, so they're going to have to 3-man the rest of this pull, which is, once again, a fairly modest pull. Should put them at around 61-62% as Pain for Fem rifles through the trash, leading up to Sporecaller Zancha at 74% right now, dealing with the double Defiler pull, as one of the emissaries is just on looking on the side there. They don't need to actually touch that emissary at all, if I'm not mistaken, and they'll be on the boss in just a moment. Now, they might need it for percent, but there's plenty of trash left towards the end of the dungeon, and it's easy to combine, you know, 2 of those aberrations with one of the danger noodles if needed.
Yeah, so I think the last time around they were actually pulling both of the Emissary of Tides on top of the boss. But they also pulled Dixie Fallers, if I'm not completely mistaken, on top of the boss on Sancha, and that is where they wiped. So they actually did adapt their strategy, going a little bit safer here. I really like this coming out of Pain for Fem. I mean, they know at this point they're really far ahead, so why risk it? Why try and pull the trash on top of the boss when they can just deal with it like this? I mean, it seems very inefficient, right? They just, you know, dealing with a Death Speaker by itself, very inefficient. But if you're this far ahead, why risk anything else? So they're probably still going to pull the Emissary of Tides on top of the boss, just because that's really not a huge risk at all that you have to take, but not going to pull any other trash other than the emissaries on top. So safer play here for Pain for Fem.
Yeah, I like seeing that, just adapting. They were clearly uncomfortable doing it. Shella died twice there. Everything was unstable. Did they end up full wiping? I don't remember exactly.
They had to reset, yeah.
Yeah, they had to reset. So everything got just very unstable. They said, hey, you know, we're not comfortable doing this pull, and indeed just adapted back to the 2 Emissary of Tides pull that we saw in previous weeks some other teams do. So not a brand new strategy here, but, you know, an oldie but a goodie, so to speak. Sport Caller here, 71% right now for Pain for Fem. We're about to have Festering Harvest cast for the first time as Sport Caller Zancha's energy is about to hit 100. We could see it there at the bottom of the screen. That's a new feature as of this season's MDI. We're able to track the boss's abilities for those that do use the various resources to cast at 100 energy or whatever resource have you. Fly Me Out here, 46% on Kragma. Was also about to fill the resource meter and do their tantrum in just a moment, but miles behind for Fly Me Out right now, and their clean sheet of moving nice and slow has also been stripped from them. They have 2 deaths on the board right now, so nothing really looking great for Fly Me Out right now.
Yeah, definitely true. There's Pain for Fem needs to make some huge mistakes if Fly Me Out wants to catch up, but right now it doesn't seem like that, because with them, you know, just playing slower as well, Pain for Fem, that's one thing that doesn't really, you know, speak for the safer strategy, right? Because if you play a safer strategy like Fly Me Out is against a team that usually plays faster strategies, if they realize, if they watch the stream, look, we're so far ahead, we might as well just play the safer strat too at this point, because they already made up so much time with the faster earlier strat that they can just switch to the safer one, which is exactly what Pain for Fem is doing. So just Pain for Fem in general, just having no better play here in this dungeon specifically, also in Tol Dagor of course, but you know, Fly Me Out, they're definitely one of the lower seeds. We in the time trial already, Pain for Fem definitely the favorites for this series to win.
For the series, indeed. 3% here. Actually, Sport Caller Zancha dead before I'd even finished that sentence. 83% trash. They're likely going to do the same fairly aggressive pull with the Guardians and the Death Speaker leading up. We can see an Emissary of Tides in the distance. Now, that one, if they cleave on top of the Death Speaker, will get the Raised Dead cast off for sure. Whereas earlier was just clearly a blunder. They mismanaged the interrupts here. So collecting themselves here for a fairly big pull as Fly Me Out has dealt with Kragma and is dealing with one of the Hazard Spaghettis right now on top of nothing, actually. They're just cleaving it down alone, DPSing it down alone, not even cleaving. Finally, they pull the Death Speaker and Guardian pack on top of it. It seems that one of the casts did leak. I'm not really sure how that's possible with the Prop Paladin in there, but one of the Death Bolt did leak on top of the group. They managed to stabilize, and they're now cleaving down that Guardian pack. Pain for Fem, aggressive pull here on top of this Raging Rigatoni.
Yeah, they were actually pulling one of the noodles here on top of the Guardians and the Defiler, so a big pull coming in by them. There was an Emissary of Tides that you can see on the right side of your screen right now that was in this pack, but it did get CC'd by, I believe, a sap first by the Rogue, and then it just constantly got rooted by the Rasta Druid. So they just kept it out of the pack at all times, because there's a lot of casts that you want to be interrupting when there's a Danger Noodle, and there's also a Defiler on top of that. So definitely well done by Pain for Fem here to get this control. And the Danger Noodle is actually not there on non-teaming. So this is a teaming only thing. So whenever we have teaming in the MDI, you need to adapt your strategy and make sure you change around your pulls, just because teaming means that all of the mobs give less percentage because there's more mobs available in the dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly a lot more trash that you need to do, and sometimes just new nasty combos of trash as we saw there with that the Danger Noodle on the side. Usually not present in that pack, so that's why it forced them to deal with that Emissary of Tides. Double Corruptor pull here should finish the job for Pain for Fem, and they have an Emissary of Tides on top of it, so more than enough trash really needed in this pull before they progress to the Unbound Abomination, the final boss of the dungeon. We do know, of course, you have to shatter that 100% trash before that webbing door behind them opens up. Fly Me Out, 75% on trash, still playing it nice and safe right now before moving over to Sport Caller Zancha. The slower and safer they play it, the further they get behind in the dungeon, obviously. And on top of it, they're also playing very defensive builds as well. I mean, Protection Paladins using double defensive trinkets. If you're going to move as slowly as you are without as much aggressive trash, then you should probably put on something more offensive to try and kill things faster. But very safe play here from them. Unfortunately, I guess not safe enough, as they actually have a full team wipe right now. We do know that's unrecoverable. Explosives going off, and they don't have the battle res, and on top of it, it's just a full team wipe. There's no way they're recovering, because Negra, you know as well as I do, once you start wiping to explosives and more explosives go down, it's just unrecoverable. Even if you get a battle res up, you're not catching up. Yeah,
I'm not completely sure what happened there, but I think it was an Emissary of Tides, unfortunately moving on top of the rest of the pack, and there were a bunch of Defilers there. If you have the Shadow Bolt volleys be non-interruptible because the Emissary of Tides, then you're just gonna have a full team wipe, and I think that's what happened. Now, if you look at the setup that Fly Me Out is running, it's definitely a lot more difficult for them to control those emissaries because you just don't have this entangling roots that makes it so good to deal with. You can just constantly root it. Entangling roots does not have a cooldown, so you can just spam it all the time. So definitely an easier time to deal with those with the rest of it.
Entangling roots is just frankly overpowered for emissary at times.
Maybe.
If you have a druid in there, you just say, hey, listen, all right, we should slap a 4-minute cooldown on that bad boy and see how you guys deal with it.
They would like that for PvP.
I'm sure they would. Unbound Abomination here has gone through its first cycle of Blood Visages. So we have 2 more cycles to go, one at 1/3 of health remaining. One more here, one at 1/3 health remaining, and then the final ones at the end of the fight. So 1/3 of the fight here is done for For Fem right now. There's the second Blood Vicious spawn right now. It should chunk the boss down to 33-ish%, and then they'll be well on their way to finishing this off. Fly Me Out recovering from their wipe here and just trying that double Defiler pull yet again.
I'm still not completely sure why For Fem is actually saving their Bloodlust for the last boss, because it's a 45 setting, there's no other mobs that you can pull on top, so you can't even make use of the DK damage either. I personally would like if they actually used it on a trash pull or something like that, or maybe even on Sancha. I don't know, but there was this one pull after Sancha that seemed kind of difficult, where they're pulling Danger Noodle, the Defiler, the Guardians. Maybe using Bloodlust there might be a little bit more efficient. It also seems way more dangerous to do that pull compared to the boss. But For Fem, 2-0 against
turns out, Zara, but we are starting on 2 time trial maps here, so it should be something that both teams are very comfortable with.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first time we've seen Atal'Dazar today. Surprisingly, it's been a long day. It's been the 3rd map in a couple series, but we haven't had very many game 3s today, so we haven't actually seen it yet. So first time we're seeing Atal'Dazar today, and it is an explosive quaking dungeon. It's kind of nasty.
Yeah, quaking's not the end of the world, but the explosives can get out of hand, as we see right here in Atal'Dazar dropping solo, no proc on the cheat death, fortunately for them. Both teams slugging it out on the kind of west side terrace here right now, leading up to Priestess Alunza. Now, we do know because of the nerfs to the Construct Zyro, they have, it is more viable to pull them, yet most teams still go along this route up to Priestess Alunza, but still opt to skip that Construct entirely, so they'll usually run by the pack and then Shadow Meld at the top of the stairs.
Yeah, I think we've seen some kind of off-meta stuff from other teams like AAA in the East region. Unfortunately, on the side of Depleto squad, Chaya does go down to Ladra as well. They've had 3 deaths on the board so far. They haven't used their battle res yet, but this is, I mean, we've seen what happens when teams start to wipe to this pack. They just start feeding deaths because they can't get all the interrupts and they keep running back. So hopefully it sticks there. Everyone's alive, everyone's back. Hopefully no more deaths come out from them because, I mean, feeding more deaths to this pull is not what you want to be doing in the first match of a series.
No, not at all. And the Juggernauts make it so hard too because all of their enraged casts go through. Everybody pays attention to the Confessor and, of course, the Firecasters. So you want to make sure that you're on everything back. But they have enrages. They're running around. They're whirlwinding the group. And it is a bit of a slot fest here early on for Depleto squad. You love to see it if you're a 40k supporter here. 40k has a flawless run, already pulling Priestess Alunza and all of the trash on top of it. So pretty sizable pull coming in here. A lot of damage on Kuri right now as the damage over time effect from Priestess Alunza goes on, immediately dispelled by Igloo. Lots of damage on Rentari right now, but they seem to be stabilizing as they have 12 seconds left on the Bloodlust, but Lozelle going down here, and immediately the battle res comes up. And speaking of you hate to see it, I believe he took the res as she was still channeling, so she got a tick of the healing, and what makes it even worse is just because they lost a player right before the transfusion Zyro, they didn't have the extra damage on the boss, so they just lost a ton of effective damage on this boss.
Oh yeah, the transfusion itself should have done 25% damage to the boss, but the boss is not even close to taking that much, so just big misplay. That death is really unfortunate, and the timing taking the res, knowing the transfusion's about to go off, little unfortunate on the timing there for them. That's going to definitely leave space for Depleto squad to get back into this. They've popped their Bloodlust, they're doing the trash pull. Looks like they're pretty clean so far. First transfusion is clean. They're at 70%, already better than where 40k was, and the rest of the trash pack seems to be going down clean as well. So, yeah, oh my god, 40k, what's going on?
Zyro! The cast.
I was saying Depleto was doing good, not 40k.
Ah, well, because you ignored them. Full team wipe coming here out of 40k right now on Priestess Alunza of all bosses. I mean, to be fair, she's actually quite tough when you pull all of the trash on top of her. But it's weird because they got through most of the difficulty of that pull, you know? They had dealt with most of the trash you saw. There's only one Juggernaut remaining at the end there. So just last-second woes on the boss ended up wiping the entire team. Problem is now that they will need to stealth up the bridge and all the way back. But I'm pretty sure the Construct has True Sight, so the Druid can't just go kitty form stealth and go res everyone, so he's going to need to have access to his Shadow Meld, which is just about to come off cooldown, which is why he was strafing back and forth, waiting for no reason. Undulating Tides barely saving his life there, as most of the Absorb still remains. Goes upstairs, Shadow Melds, reses the entire team, and Fourty is ready to pull the boss yet again. Chaya, unfortunately, down for Depleto squad, but the boss is about to tick for a few more percent here, only taking for 3.5–4% as opposed to the full 5, as one of the members of the team is not reflecting the transfusion back.
I mean, it's really important to mention, like, what happens if 40K loses this match. That leaves the door wide open for both No Girls Allowed and Pain for Fem to catch up a lot in the rankings for BlizzCon, because right now 40K is occupying that 4th seed slot. If they get last place or tied for last place in this tournament, they leave the door open for 40K and for Pain for Fem and No Girls Allowed to catch up a lot in points. I mean, No Girls Allowed is only 130 points behind. They can make, if they get 3rd place in this tournament, they can make up 90 of those points in this one particular tournament.
Right, you are, Zyra, and it would be a particularly spicy 3rd cup to watch.
Oh, yeah.
It could be just wide open, as you said. Depends what the final results of the cup here this weekend are. We'll have to find those out tomorrow. Some of them, of course, will be placed on early. We already saw one of the teams get eliminated prior, and one more has to go here between these two. So both teams having a bit of a slugfest here with 6 deaths on the board apiece. Chaya LaBeouf, unfortunately, still down on the ground, but they're going to res him here momentarily as the boss has fallen over. They head downstairs. Now, there are 2 augurs in this group. Let's talk about this pack particularly. The 2 augurs here will cast a couple of wildfires at the start, but if you keep them in melee range and everyone stays in melee range, they kind of just stop casting. So the Emissary of the Tides being present there is not really the most dangerous thing in the world outside of the first few casts that Gigabob has to pay attention to.
And it looks like one of the rogues is... Okay, never mind. He's just getting past the next fire. It looks like he was going towards the lever, but the lever's on the right side on this side. We're used to seeing the lever on the other side near Volcall. It's on the left side. So yeah, like you mentioned, hopefully the tank just stays in melee range so they won't be casting into those wildfires. Looks like he's doing a good job of it right now. We've seen some tanks kind of outrange them so the wildfire would keep casting, and that's really not ideal because that's just extra group damage because the wildfire can go on anyone. So good to know that he's, good of him to know to stay in melee range so that they don't take any unnecessary group damage there. I mean, that's about as clean as that pull can go, and it looks like an easy pull, but it can go very wrong for some teams.
Well, wildfire cast, wildly casting in various directions is very painful, and it's part of what's so dangerous about that first pull up on the West Terrace at the beginning. It's not even just the Juggernauts, it's just a bunch of residual damage on the team. Tricks of the trade pull coming in here from the rogues as all the swords and one of the Sky Screamers are tricked over to the tank. Rentari down on the side of 40K right now, though. Lozelle going down and Wolf Disco going down in a moment as well. Boss here at 14%. This is looking a bit rough, Zyra.
This transfusion should finish the boss off.
Let's hope so, because
Fortunately, wow.
So they do manage to get the boss down. Another low percent wipe on that boss would have been, just heartbreaking.
Oh no, Chaya just... Okay, everyone jumped off. I saw Chaya jump off before everyone else. I'm like, oh no, don't do that to us. Yeah, okay, everyone jumped off because they were just finishing off the Sky Screamers before they hopefully go on to start targeting Razan here as well. That's the natural progression of the dungeon. We see teams do the bridge pulls, move on to Razan, and move on to Volcall afterwards. So yeah, just good to see everyone do that. I mean, it's kind of funny because usually when you see teams do that snap pull, you see one DPS jump before everyone else is like, oh my god, did he fall off? I hope not. And then
everyone's not that bad of a dungeon.
And then everyone jumps off and it's like, okay, all right, it's fine. But yeah, right on to Razan here. The first snap pull gone pretty well for them.
We are in a tyrannical affix, and Razan absolutely trucks tanks. Oh, yeah. Just to mention, so that bleed that you usually casually see go up on the tank in an 18 tyrannical environment is very dangerous. Lozelle somehow dead immediately as they pull Razan on the side of 40K, so they're going to have to reset the boss in order to be able to res him once they get down the rest of his trash. I think he got leaped on by some of the swords that they had snapped downstairs, so unlucky for him, but they do have to reset the boss. They don't have the battle res ready for them. The Depleto squad still moving through Razan here, 70% on the board, explosive on the side, Sky Screamer on top of it as well. They'll be able to cleave that down no problem as they spread out for a quaking here. And 40K, like I said, they reset the boss, they have to get out of combat, and here we go with the res coming up on Lozelle, and they'll have to re-pull 2 bosses, Zyro, and already a reset on each boss for the team.
Yeah, not good. I saw one of the rogues get feared underneath the staircase there, Nereus. We saw that. I saw that. I don't know if you saw it. I definitely saw it. I'm going to call you out. I didn't want to be the one to say it. All right, we both saw it, but I mean, come on, you got to call out small mistakes like that. You're in the MDI. You can't be making silly mistakes like not LOSing the boss sphere. Come on, man. It's not that big of a deal. They're still ahead in the dungeon, of course. Okay.
Well, Naladra dead again. He was dead on the previous boss. These two teams are deja vuing.
Oh, yeah. All over.
40K had a wipe reset on Priestess Alunza and barely killed her the second time. Now they had to reset Razan once just because Lazelle died, and now they're doing him for the second time. Depleto squad had to 4-man Priestess Alunza because Naladra died, and now they have to 4-man the rest of a high tyrannical boss at around 55% is when he died. Again, as a 4-man, because Naladra once again died. I mean, are we in the Matrix for Nazar, or what's going on here?
I mean, if you heard me all day, I've apparently missed a couple weeks. There have been a couple weeks that have somehow been in the past 2 weeks that I just completely missed, and I'm still learning about things today that happened during those 2 weeks, so I don't even know what's going on anymore.
That's unfortunate. Probably go with the program, as you are responsible for dictating what's going on here. But Razan now at 35%. This is going to take so long, and what it's going to do even with how much tragedy 40K has been having in this dungeon, it's actually going to open up the door for 40K to catch up a bit. You're probably going to see both bosses die around the same time here, and really the only thing that's going to differ the two teams are those 3 deaths, death difference rather, between the Depleto squad and 40K. So 40K, of course, having the a negative brunt of that. They'll have to overcome next for 15 seconds. Shield wall already down here for Rad on the side of Depleto squad. They do one more line of sight here for yet another round of fear.
Yeah, I mean, being 1 DPS down in this patch is not nearly as bad as it was in the spring split, because your tank and your healer are accounting for a lot more of your single target damage than they were before. But you know, if you would be generous and say that your tank plus your healer accounted for maybe 1 full DPS worth of damage, being a DPS down means you're still losing a quarter of your damage. So they're just doing the boss 25% slower, unfortunately. But at that point, the boss is already at 45% HP. You just have to commit to finishing the boss with 2 DPS, which, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, you know, just don't die, Forehead.
Forehead indeed. Razan finally entering the single digits of percent here for Depleto squad. 9% for them, 24% for 40K. Both teams moving out for this quaking. It's really cool to see the synchronized pulse of quaking on the two teams every 20 seconds or so once they flag out and start the dungeon. Just because obviously they're starting at the same time. 14% on Razan here. So Depleto squad, I miscalled it a bit. Depleto squad does end up finishing a bit earlier. And okay, I think huge misplay here. Battle Res comes up for Depleto squad, and they immediately committed to getting Naladra up on a boss that was at 3% already. And now they're not going to have a Battle Res available for another 9.5 minutes or so. I'm not sure if I'm liking this one, Zach.
No, that was he could have released and run back to the group in the I don't know what's going on anymore. That seems just lazy to me. I mean, you can release at the start of the dungeon here the second the boss is dead, and you can run back in like 5 seconds because the start of the dungeon is right there.
And even so, if the team was 500 miles or 500 yards away from the start of the dungeon, or from whatever checkpoint, they were 3% from killing the boss. They could have just naturally rezzed him after the boss had keeled over.
Well, he had the emissary to finish off, right? That's the only reason I'm talking about the res. But even so, that's so little HP. It doesn't matter. Like they should have just finished the emissary off and rezzed him if they were far away. That just seems really lazy. Anyways, big snap pull coming out from the squad here. I mean, I almost feel like some of the decisions they're making are just kind of, they're not, I wouldn't say lazy, they almost seem uninformed. Like, these are not things that you really want to be doing. They're not efficient at all. Like, using a battle res at 3%, my jaw's still on the floor.
It could be just, I don't know, nerves taking over the team. This is their first time in tournament play right now. Whatever it may be, certainly not the best play. But 40K has also downed Razan just a bit earlier. Both teams doing pretty equivalent pulls here of snapping the Dino and the Dinos, and the Dinomancer on top here. Now, previous weeks, of course, we saw Tol have the Sanguine, so it was kind of a messy thing to do the snap, and then the Dinomancer wouldn't move because she's a ranged mob that's not interruptible, and it would just take ages for her as essentially as a hunter unit to move away, and she'd heal to full. But here, it's a bit easier. They could just sit here and camp and make sure that they cleave everything down. Just a lot of damage on the tank is really what this all comes down to.
Yep, and of course they're going to unsnap it. They just fall to the ground? That was really weird. They moved off the snap spot. Dinomancer's kind of evade bugging a little bit there. Okay, now they're back with the group. That's great. That could have been really unfortunate if it ended up resetting for them. That's a lot of missed damage they could have had there. But fortunately, didn't happen. That's good. Pull it with the Emissary of the Tides. This is, I mean, it looked a little questionable, but ended up being a pretty decent pull for them.
I mean, that's just kind of the risk you take when you play snapping. Yeah. Snapping is not actually a technique, made to work properly in the game. So it's more of a player trick. And I mean, you reap what you sow kind of thing. If you end up on a bad evade on it and a mob resets, I mean, that's on you. You took the risk of snapping in the first place. So Depleto squad, no problems for them as they sit at 87% trash. Well interrupted there for the bulwarks of Juju to get the remaining 13% here, and perhaps with one more Sky Screamer after they deal with Volcall, but excellent interrupts for the bulwarks. We do know those supply a 90% or 90% damage reduction aura for the mobs around them, so really inefficient for damage if you let those channel through.
I think the 2 Stalkers should hopefully finish off their percentage other than the Sky Screamer. I believe that this is all that they'll need as long as they finish this off. So that should be the rest of the mob count for Depleto's squad. And then after they deal with this, they'll just have to go boss to boss, probably saving the Bloodlust for the Priestess at the end. I'm sorry, not the Priestess, Akana, whatever her name is. I'm so confused by what's been going on in this dungeon at this point that like it's.
I don't even know where you are anymore.
I don't know where I am or what's going on anymore. I don't know what I'm watching.
Well, you're watching a monitor of these 2 teams competing here in Atal'Dazar. You meant to say Yasma, the final boss.
That's the one.
That's the one. I think you were just so upset about the web designer joke from last time that I made about her that you just want to take it completely out of your memory. 40K here has gotten into Volcall's room. We do know, Zyra, that Volcall in this recent season for patch 8.2 was actually buffed a fair bit. Him and Priestess Atal'Dazar. You're so upset with yourself. It's okay, man. Don't worry about it. Volcall was buffed this previous season, so his AoE pulses for a fair bit more, and he also, I believe, actually I can't remember if his melee was buffed. I don't think his melee was buffed. He's just general damage on the tank. It's fairly high compared to some of the other bosses in dungeon, but it's really his pulsing AoE that does a fair bit more damage on the group, similar to how Priestess Alunzo is buffed. So, you know, most of the time you never see teams using Bloodlust on this boss because he does also pulse on himself and therefore technically kill himself faster. But, you know, with the danger of it, I don't know. I mean, these teams have had a lot of struggles on Priestess Alunzo of all bosses, so...
Yeah, you know what it was actually? So I heard, you know, on the desk earlier, someone mentioned a call to Sours. I didn't want them to feel alone when they were talking about somebody that wasn't here, so I just, you know, had to throw that out there for them. They do use the... Okay.
I called it.
They're doing...
What do you mean, no? I literally just called it.
No, you did call it, but I'm saying no to the team. They're just doing everything differently just to troll us at this point. This is not what you do in this dungeon. Like, this is so different than what like the optimal thing to do is. I feel like they have to be trolling.
I feel like you need to slap them over the snout with a new rolled up newspaper and say no. Is that what you want to do, Zyro? Depleto squad here, 69% on Volcall. And, you know, they were actually... did they pull before 40k on this boss? I'm not sure if they did. If they did, it was very close timing. And even with the Bloodlust, they haven't fully matched the percentage of 40k right now. Now, on the flip side, this is good news for 40k because they do need to win this dungeon by at least 15 seconds, barring any other deaths between the 2 teams, because they have 10 deaths on the board versus, of course, Depleto's 7 deaths right now. Volcall 45% versus 40% for 40k.
You know what? You know what this strategy is?
What's that?
It's Weird Champ. That's what it is. I just thought about it. That's the emote that I would use to describe the strategy they're doing right now. This is... I mean, this is a callback to a meme from a long time ago, but yeah. The Atal'Dazar lusting on Volcall. Only thing I can use to describe this is Weird Champ. That's it. I'm done. I mean,
I understand the concept behind it. Yeah, like I said, it was buffed. It is more dangerous, but more dangerous than Yasma at the end? No way. I really don't think so. Yasma is usually the play for the Bloodlust there. Nonetheless, 40k is actually widening the margin between the 2 bosses right now. It's sitting at around a 7-ish% between them, 6-7%. 40k finally entering the single digits here. Both teams, actually, no, not both teams. The Depleto squad has finished 100% of the trash, but 40k still has 3%, so they will have to deal with one of those Sky Screamers. You know, I expect we might likely see one of the more traditional types of pulls, you know, where they pull the Sky Screamer all the way up and they paralyze it on the side and then just leave it untouched until the very end and then cleave it all down together.
Yeah, and that'll also let them skip the 5th Reaping Wave as well, which is pretty good for this dungeon as well. Oh wait, that's wrong season again. Where are we again?
Zyro.
I don't know what's going on anymore. Yeah, I mean, the Depleto squad, they are going to get to... Well, they're not even going to get to Yasma first. So... I'm not really sure what the Bloodlust usage was for there. I mean, this is just so... I mean, it's not even this. It's not a comp issue. It's just like a routing issue. I don't understand what the Lust was used for on Volcall because it's not the right place to use it in general because the boss, like we mentioned, the boss pulses damage on himself. So why would you use your Bloodlust on a boss that will eventually kill himself versus just using it on Yasma, which is clearly the more difficult boss?
Oh, I mean, we do know that Chaya is resident DH on live service, if I'm not mistaken. That's his comfort pick. But not having that monk available there is really... Did it just get a... Oh.
They had a fear.
I was going to say, did a fear just get off for 40k? As I was talking, I turned my head and I was a bit... scared there for them, but fortunately no death for them. Sky Screamer Screech finally gets interrupted properly this time here for Forty, who has popped their Bloodlust. But what I wanted to say, Zyro, is it's great that Shaya has this comfort pick, but losing 5% physical increased damage for pretty much the entirety of your team, including yourself, is... I mean, no wonder the Bloodlust barely caught them up, if even on the final boss. 40k has to overcome this boss by 15 seconds, but they have Bloodlust, they have the 5% debuff. I mean, I actually think 40k might be able to pull this off as long as, well, the Screamer's interrupted for starters, and nobody else dies.
I mean, the last time I did a 17 Tyrannical Atal'Dazar, this is an 18, mind you, but I'm going to pretend it's a 17 for the sake of my story. Yep. The last time I did a 17 Tyrannical Atal'Dazar, I had a Demon Hunter die 4 times on the final boss. So, I mean, I'm not trying to caster curse them here, but that has happened to me before, so it could happen to them. And they don't have any battle reses. We had 4, so, and we didn't kill it. So, man, you know, history repeats itself, Sloop.
History repeats itself, but, you know, I just touted 40k for having the superior advantage in terms of damage, and with that, not the Battle Shadow, excuse me, the Bloodlust, but it really didn't do much for them. Both, they're neck and neck right now. There's about 1% separating these two teams. Depleto Squad is actually now looking like they're going to win this, so if there's any way for 40k to win this, it's got to be a hiccup on Depleto Squad. There's got to be a death or a full wipe, or just somehow miraculously using that 5% damage buff. They need to pull substantially ahead of the boss, but it's not looking good right now for 40k, Zyro.
Yeah, I mean, Depleto Squad, as much as I've kind of ragged on them this game, they're playing this boss right. There's not really a whole lot that you can do wrong on this boss as long as you're not getting hit by spiders and you're dealing with the soul binds properly. It looks like they're also getting a little bit of good RNG on one of the rogues here, or Nereus is just having awful RNG with his rolls because, I mean, Naladra is kind of pumping right now and Nereus is lagging behind a little bit. At the same time, Bob is kind of also putting out some good damage as well compared to Igloo. So, I mean, they're keeping up, and as we mentioned, their DPS, they're actually falling behind by about 8% on the boss damage. So, this could end up being really close.
Yeah, it's going to be close, and I'm just looking. Curry did use his Adrenaline Rush there, and Wolf does not have his available. I'm not sure if Lizelle, I think he had SCF or Touch of Death. I'm not sure which one he had there. It's on the small screen. But Yasmin now 17%, and it looks like Depleto has had another round of their cooldowns come up, so they've managed to re-close that gap to around 4%. This is actually going to be pretty close by the end of it. I do think Depleto is going to end up taking this one, though, Zyro.
It's going to be close, but the death difference is going to come back to bite them. The 15-second death difference, even if 40k gets it down first, Depleto will have that 15 seconds advantage in order to finish the boss in. So they should end up taking this down. We'll get the official times from the admins in the back once the dungeons are complete, but it looks like it's going to be a win for Depleto Squad.
And here
Start your timers, 15 seconds on the clock.
15 seconds, I mean, you can keep relative track on that Bloodlust cooldown right now, but I believe they will make it in time. We'll have to get official ruling, as you mentioned. I believe Depleto Squad probably, but their time trials in Atal'Dazar did not exactly match the previous runs there, Zyro.
No, not in the slightest. And it looks like Depleto Squad heard your cry for that physical damage debuff and decided to put a Brewmaster Monk in.
At the cost of 3% AP for the group, which is totally fine. I mean, I would take that trade-off any day of the week. Depleto Squad moving in, actually both teams moving into the Golden Serpent's room right now and getting ready to duke it out here. Now, things in this dungeon, Zyro, I mean, when they go wrong very early here with some of his first pulls.
Sorry,
It's okay, Zyro, I'm in shock too. What's about to happen here?
I'm just trying to think of, like, well, you know, what's the difference between these teams and Method EU? I mean, Method EU had such a much faster time in time trials than every single one of these teams. It was 3 minutes faster, pretty much, than both of these two teams. I mean, these teams are kind of doing similar, slower first pulls where, like, for instance, Depleto Squad only doing 2 trash pulls, 40k also doing 2 trash pulls. We saw, I think, Abrakeydabra doing 3 earlier, and I mean, I could think the only major difference is doing all 4 at the same time, but that just seems dangerous.
That's really dangerous unless you have, I mean, yeah, it's pretty dangerous. But of course, we are in a bursting skittish environment, fortified, so just a couple errors on the screen in terms of affixes, but we are in the bursting, which is why you're saying it would be so dangerous with that 4-pack coming in. So you have to respect that bursting unless you have mass immunities in the group, and certainly the DPS would be pretty well off. I'm not so sure about the healer and the prot warrior. Not exactly anything they could do about that outside of just try to either out-heal it or mass mitigate it. You don't have a paladin in there or somebody who can self-heal a huge amount like a blood DK, but you, of course, even need something to death strike off of. So very dangerous pulls should you pull the entire room, but Depleto Squad and 40k having a pretty clean go at it so far. 40k superior here with 13% trash. Actually, Depleto Squad just matching that as I said it, but 40k just slightly ahead. They did pull this final group of 4 first, but they'll, I mean, there's a lot of points in this dungeon where things can unravel, Zyro. This room was...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I mean, in Fortified, there's so many different individual pulls in this dungeon that are dangerous, especially when we talk about the bridge. I mean, on top of that, I'm interested to see how these individual teams plan on pulling the animated Guardians, because if they play anywhere near the level they played in that Atal'Dazar, I mean, they are probably going to see a wipe to the Guardians, because I feel like the Guardian pulls are more dangerous than any of the trash pulls in Atal'Dazar.
All right, you are, absolutely. Depleto squad, both teams still 13% apiece. They're trying to finish off the fourth pack here. Now, there usually is an Emissary of the Tides, if I'm not mistaken, in the far corner. I didn't know if they cleaved it down with anybody already, or if it's just rooted off to the side, but I do remember an Emissary of the Tides in one of the previous series, King's Rest, being combined with the boss here. Yes, there it is in the corner right now. It's not actually connected to the pack that was pulled there. In fact, there's a lot of emissaries in general during the season's affix that aren't actually connected to the trash socially or for proxy aggro. So I do encourage those at home to mix and match. You'd be surprised with how many times you can get away without actually even needing to aggro the emissaries with the trash, which is exactly what these teams did here. They left the emissary in the corner, and then as soon as the Golden Serpent spawned, as we see here for 40k, it was at 80% on the boss. They just combined it with that emissary and the two constructs.
Oh, the two constructs coming in for 40k. And I think we mentioned earlier, this is the team, 40k, they plan on doing, on top of these two Guardians with the boss, they also plan on pulling the third and fourth Guardians with the Gauntlet, and they weren't able to make that work because they messed up something with the minions of Zul last time. So we'll see if they're going to be able to pull it off this time. I think it's really going to set them ahead in the dungeon if they're able to pull it off. They can probably get a very quick time because they'll be able to, on top of that, be able to skip the Hulk pack as well on the bridge. So as long as they're able to pull this off, I mean, it could be really good for them. They were able to do the boss earlier today with no major issues. So hopefully we'll see them go 2 for 2 here.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be really nice. It all comes down to Igloo, right? Igloo's the one that runs off and pulls off the two constructs and brings them back to the Gauntlet. So we'll see if they can pull that off. As you mentioned, 22% trash on the board for both teams, but soon to be higher for 40k if they can deal with these constructs. Constructs, of course, have reached sub 50%, meaning they've increased their attack speed, their haste by 50%. So they're going to be walloping on Rentari right now on the side of 40k, but if they can handle it, it's quite a significant advantage for later in the dungeon because it allows them to better mix and match. We kind of saw a preview of their strat earlier, Zyra. You and I were on the desk here of, you know, just the amount of bridge trash they're able to skip and what they combined with it. Which I thought was actually really clever play from them. Depleto squad still maintaining that 10-ish% difference on the Golden Serpent, but I mean, 40k is actually looking great here right now. They're ahead on the boss. They're actually maintaining the same threshold on the boss between them and Depleto squad of 10% while still tanking two constructs on top of it.
I mean, they're already outperforming what they did earlier today. I mean, when they were playing against Abrakeydabra earlier today, they wiped to bursting on the very first pull, and then it just didn't get any better from there. So already outperforming themselves by dealing with both the boss and both of the constructs here in a second, already at 28%, and they killed the boss with the trash before Depleto squad just killed the boss by itself. So, I mean, this is just good execution from them so far, and I want to see more of it going forward.
Yeah, that's really great here. So we know that for 40k, Igloo's run off screen here and is picking up the remaining two constructs. Hopefully they don't have a little oopsie daisy again with the Shadows of Zul, the minions of Zul coming in. If they do, it's okay to mass root them on the side. Let's just see exactly what Igloo's running here. He is indeed running mass root, so he has that safety net if they do proxy aggro, which is a very high probability that they do. He's able to just mass root them on the side, and indeed we see the fixates, as you just mentioned, Zyro, to me. Fixates on the top of the screen here for 40k, implying that they were indeed pulled. So Resto's going to need to be very good about keeping these mobs crowd control on the side until they can deal with them after the Gauntlet or between Gauntlet pulls.
Yep, and you see those Guardians in the hallway there looming in the background.
That is so scary
walking towards the group. Yeah, and we should see the minions trailing behind here in a little bit, and you'll probably see Igloo run out, toss an Ursul's down to stack everything up, and then use the Mass Root as well.
So wouldn't be shocked if he already did that, like just to buy himself time. Yeah. They could already be rooted, and probably within about 10 seconds or so, we'll see them come in.
Yeah, we'll probably see them come in later as well. Oh, there they are.
Those little guys.
I wonder what their plan is for getting rid of those. Are they going to have a rogue go over and cloak them? Or going to have the tank, do his thing as well? They could do either one of those. I imagine it's going to be one of the rogues because your tank kind of wants to be tanking things, and you don't want to be moving the Guardians all the way to the end. But I mean, tank death right there, and Lazo also going down too. Lazo can release and catch up with the group if he wants to. But
there's nothing preventing him from doing so. There's no trash that they've skipped, so he should certainly do that. Now, I'm not mistaken. I'll have to kind of, well, I'll have to jot my memory here, but I think that it wasn't the Gauntlet. No, the Gauntlet's not considered a boss encounter, right? You can release during it, I believe. I'm not sure what other reason he would have for not releasing from the Gauntlet right now. That's the only thing I can think about, but I don't remember off the top of my head because, well, frankly, it's been a while since we've had kind of one person or two people die on the Gauntlet and need to run back without a battle res. But here, Fourty now has 2 deaths, unfortunately, from this Gauntlet that has proven to be yet again a thorn in the side of Fourty, while Depleto squad nice and steady going through this. They're dealing with the double construct pack as well, but they're dealing with the front 2 constructs, so they don't have the danger looming of those little minions of Zool in the background.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, they do drop combat in between each of the Gauntlet trash packs, right? So what they'll want to do here, if they do want to have a chance of rezzing Lazzle, he does end up finally releasing, so that is something you can do. And like we mentioned, there's nothing in the way. Usually we'll never see people release here if they don't have a battle res, because almost always these Guardians are in the way with the Emissary. So yeah, interesting to see him take that long to release. I mean, maybe it was just kind of, maybe I can release, guys, I'll do it. They'll probably have to have someone go deal with the minions of Zool in the back before he gets by, just so he doesn't get feared and die to the residual damage there. But yeah, they deal with the constructs even without Lazzle there. And I think because of that, they're pretty significantly ahead in terms of percentage. They will be able to skip that extra trash pack on the bridge.
To answer your question, I think what they might do, well, I'm not sure what Rentari's going to do. Well, I suppose, or Curry's fine because he has Vanish, but I was thinking they were just maybe going to Shadow Meld the little minions of Zool and just not deal with them. But I'm not sure. Well, Rentari's not going to be able to do that. So is it worth Rentari dying just so they can all get rid of them? Or they might just send the rogues in with Cloak, because their Cloak should be back up for when they deal with the Ooey Gooey Rich and Chewies later in order to deal with those, and then everybody else perhaps outrange the bursting. Nonetheless, they are still mass rooted. We can see it on the side of the screen there in the top right for Fourty, and we'll have to keep an eye on them because that's going to be an interesting one. We haven't actually seen any other team do this before. So curious to see how they handle it in a situation that doesn't go terribly wrong for them like it did in their previous series of King's Rest. Depleto squad, of course, not to be forgotten about, is sitting at 48% trash and has killed the pack that Fourty is currently working on because Fourty lost a bit of time with Lazzle kind of eating some dirt on the ground there.
That being said, I mean, you have to look at the trash percentages here. Even though Depleto squad is ahead in the Gauntlet, 40k is still ahead in the dungeon. Depleto squad is going to have to do some extra trash pull on the bridge to make up for the extra Guardians that 40k pulled on their side. So, I mean, they did have a little bit of a hiccup on the side of 40k, but because of the way they pulled the dungeon so far, they are still in the lead pretty significantly. They have to do one less hard trash pull. They've set themselves up for success here pretty well.
I think so too. It's going to really pay off on the bridge full of the Berserkers and the Hex Priest after Machimba, the second boss, when they're bouncing between him and the third boss there. Rentari taking just a bit of damage here. We do know the Queen here, Queen Pati, does a lot of damage. Patla, excuse me, does a ton of damage. It is blockable now. It didn't used to be back in the day. Warriors are actually horrible against this mini boss, but no problem for them here as 40k is about to finish off the trash, and I'm super curious to see what they're going to do with those minions of Zool in just a moment here. Depleto squad, in typical fashion, has already mass stealth and is heading over to Machimba's room.
Lazzle's Shadow Meld did just come off cooldown, so if they can drop combat with him, that's very likely what they're going to be doing here, and it looks like that's probably the play, but there we go. Is that it? Yep.
I actually didn't notice that Rentari is playing.
He is.
I looked at his Pummel icon, and Pummel looks very similar to Stone Form because they're both just a hand icon, as you can see on Curry. So that's why I got fooled that he was a dwarf, but he's not. You're right, indeed. He's a Night Elf. So yeah, there you go. They just don't even deal with that pack entirely.
I mean, it seems kind of silly to have your healer have to mass entangle them all the time whenever you can just have a rogue run over and cloak them really quick. That seems like it would be easier to do, in my opinion. But maybe I'm not playing the tournament. I'm casting, so. Maybe I just don't know.
But cloak them how? Because he does need to DPS them down and kill them. They have a pretty substantial shield, so you want a rogue just sitting there using Blade Flurry on them, breaking their roots and hopefully killing them within the time of his Cloak of Shadows. That seems scary. Remember, they're playing Alliance. They don't have Arcane Torrent, right? So they can't just run in there and Arcane Torrent the pack down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right at that point. At that point, they're already fixated on other people in the group. So, that's true. That's really the only reasonable way they have of dealing with those. Now, I mean, we do see them also not opting to do the entire trash pull like we've seen some groups do, where they'll do all of the embalming fluids, or like you say, the Ooey Gooeys, all at the same time, and then have the rogues just kill them on their own with Cloak. They do only have 2 rogues instead of some of the 3 rogue comps we were seeing in previous weeks to be able to, triple Blade Flurry down the fluids, so that makes a little bit of sense. But they committed all their all their major personal cooldowns to the previous pack, so they're going to have a lot of damage coming out when these fluids die.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I mean, yeah, you're right. There's no Cloak of Shadows on the board. Nobody actually has defensives. The only defensive we have is Spell Reflect from Rentaria right now, and that's really not going to cut it. You can't reflect the bursting back onto any mobs. There won't be any mobs present. So 40k is just going to have to heal through this. Now, is it a horrible amount of healing? No, it's certainly doable right now. They're being very disciplined about it. There go 3 bursting stacks. Everybody stops damage. They wait. There's another 3 bursting stacks. Okay, not everybody stops damage. They go to 5 here, but to be fair, those mobs are at 0.5% health or something like that. They wait for the final construct, and they're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, that was just pretty clean. You know, splitting up into 2 sets, I mean, that's pretty decent. I'll take that any day, a 3-set and a 5-stack. 4 and 4 would have been better, though.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fine, you know. And you know
Angry
what?
Face.
Even though they kind of had that misstep, because of the way they dealt with this room and how they've played so far, 40k's caught up in terms of dungeon progression, and they just have that extra 7% trash that they have on the board.
Yeah, I mean, they do have to overcome the 10. Once again, we're in the same boat. You know, it cost them in the last match. They have the 2 deaths to overcome by the end of the dungeon. But to be fair, I think it's slightly naive of us to assume there's going to be absolutely guaranteed no more deaths after Machimba. You hate to see it. Depleto squad still nice and strong here on Machimba. As is 40k, of course, they're sitting at 70%, and they actually committed their Bloodlust.
Yeah, that's...
Wait, but last time they committed their Bloodlust to that bridge pull right in front of Shadow of Azul. Remember? They ended up wiping there.
Yeah.
So they completely changed their Bloodlust timing here.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, they definitely were like on a completely different timing in their dungeon before, just because of all the mistakes they had leading up to that point. So it makes sense that they would do something different. Maybe they... yeah, this is just really weird. I mean, we're seeing a completely different dungeon run from them. I mean, this is a lot more clean than the one earlier today was. So I would have to imagine that this is what they're doing when they're playing well, because they will have that 3rd Bloodlust up should they keep playing cleanly, forking Dazar later on in the dungeon. So this makes a lot more sense than, I mean, what we saw earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, it's working out nicely for them too. It has been very effective. It's pulled them well ahead, whereas, you know, Depleto squad's lust that we saw in full call in the previous dungeon really wasn't very effective. Here it was effective, of course, in raw damage, but it's going to make the bridge particularly hard and spicy for 40k coming up, as Machimba's about to fall here, 1% left on the boss, and they sit at a nice 73% trash, so they're 7% ahead of Depleto squad, sitting at 66%. Machimba about to fall for them too, 4%. A lot of damage coming in on Raz right now. Must be in really heavy stagger. Machimba is one of the hardest hitting bosses of all 10 dungeons on the tank. Just his pure melee damage for some reason is scaled very high. Fortunately, they're in a fortified environment, so it's not too dangerous for the tanks, but something you want to keep an eye on. 40k dealing with this first pack here, consisting of 2 Hex Priests and, of course, that very evil, dangerous Berserker.
Yeah, and this is the benefit of what pulling those extra 2 Guardians earlier on does for them. They don't have to pull either the Emissary of the Tides pack or the Hulk pack. They can just skip all of those completely. So what I believe we're going to see out of 40k is ideally probably just a skip all the way to the 3rd boss.
A skip all the way to the 3rd boss, and then you think they're just going to shoot through the packs backwards after that? Because to do that from this distance, they have to commit both of their mass stealths. So here's one of them right now. We still have it available for... actually, we don't have it available. Discos is still on cooldown. They're going to have to stop in the middle of the bridge and DPS the packs. They just can't get any further than this.
Okay.
So here's the pull right now. Enchanted Emissary gets punted out of the group through raw damage. Lizelle, unfortunately, reflects a bit of that damage onto himself, but nothing lethal. Speaking of lethal, though, Giga goes down with Bloodlust up, and they don't have a battle rest for him on the side of Depleto. Bleed is already on Noladra. 2 stacks of the Bleed on Noladra. He's down right now. There's no way. His cheat death already procced right now as they desperately try to claw at the rest of this pack right now. There's 2 Berserkers running around wild. Rads is trying to secure aggro on them, and he hopes he can get dodges on those Bleed applications. No such luck for him as one Bleed affects him. He has no way to heal outside of just desperately trying to get away and cast Vivify on himself, but too little, too late. Waited too long for that ROP. Rads goes down. Shaya's down, and it looked like it's going to be a full team wipe coming out of here from Depleto squad. Ball is fully back in 40k's half of the court.
Yeah, really unfortunate. I mean, 40k looks like they're just slowly progressing through the dungeon. Normally, we will see teams skip to the 3rd boss if they have both their shards available. Like you mentioned, because they only have the 1 shard available. Looks like they're just going to slowly chew through this trash. And at this point, they'll have seen on the stream that Depleto squad had that massive wipe to the first trash pull, so they're not going to be in any rush to get anywhere. They should be able to just slowly make sure they deal with the trash clean. They could even do this next trash pull should they choose to before going to the boss, and then they can skip to the boss finally after that. But I mean, they have a very clean route to the victory in this map right now. All they got to do is just play super safe.
Zero.
Dude, I don't want to curse them, but that's all they have to do, man.
That's all they have to do.
That's it. Just don't die.
Just don't die. Forehead. as Emissary of the Tides here gets DPS primarily in the 40k pack, which is great because that's a very loud rushing water sound coming out of it. And they turn the Tides here indeed as it starts to teleport out of the dungeon. Hexpriest, unfortunately, is still planted nearby. They can't interrupt that Hexpriest. Finally, they get the Ring of Peace bump on it to interrupt those Spectral Bolts that deal an immense amount of damage. Rentari already was the brunt of the Frost Shock and one of the bleeds from the Berserker, so they want to make sure that they stun that Berserker perfectly with 2 seconds remaining on the stun, which they did, allowing Rentari to reset that bleed stack. The next bleed goes on Lizelle, who was in closer proximity as Rentari was out of melee range of that Berserker. A lot of damage coming in on Lizelle. He actually ate one of the Frost Shocks too. You can't really control that. One of the Frost Shocks, of course, goes on randomly one of the 5 members. And looking good for them here, Zyra. But they are over percent. They're 95% right now. It looks like they're going to run past the Berserkers and Shadow Meld here in a second. Curry, of course, will have the Vanish. And then on the way back, they'll have the Mass Stealth from Disco. Is that enough for Shadow of Zul?
The one Berserker should be enough because Shadow.
Oh, they brought. I thought they were going to get rid of the Berserker. Okay. Well, this is dangerous. We've seen another team do this season, and this worries me.
Yeah, we did see it earlier this season, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the things that Sheldon mentioned afterwards, like, oh, we just messed up our Shadow Meld on that. Or maybe it was the other team. I don't remember if it was specifically Sheldon's team, but I do remember this happening and being messaged that it was a complete mistake, because we were like, oh, yeah, that's right, that's the percentage they need, and they're like, no, that's not what we wanted to do.
No.
Because Berserkers do a ton of damage. I mean, the bleed alone on Rentari is going to chunk him pretty poor. I mean, it's a lot of damage on the tanks, even though they have pretty high physical mitigation. And even going on Lazzle here, I mean, he can use his Karma. He doesn't have Dampen, so he doesn't have anything to reduce that damage. He could go down to the next tick if the healer isn't completely focusing.
Yeah, I mean, Igloo basically has to heal 2 sets of Sever because he has the bleed on Rentari. Igloo goes down, Lizelle goes down. Rentari's going to follow suit. I mean, there's no recovering this right now. It's going to be a full team wipe here. The Rogues might vanish, but they probably need it later in order to skip the 2 Berserkers. And Tragedy strikes on the side of 40k. And as you were saying earlier, Zara, they have high physical mitigation. Doesn't even matter. Bleeds pierce all armor. So it doesn't matter what kind of tank you have in there outside of a Brewmaster that has a magic baseline stagger applying to bleed. So full team wipe from 40k here. Igloo has to release, run all the way back. Depleto squad, I mean, the ball has once again bounced in the opposite side of the court here.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a more...
You sound so disappointed. You sound like a disappointed father.
No, it's not that. I keep saying things won't happen, and then they do happen.
I told you not to say anything.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I said they wouldn't wipe to the trash. Well, no, they did wipe to the trash. Okay, well, yeah, the Berserker killed them. I'm sorry, guys. It's my fault. Don't. I mean, you can blame me. Don't blame them. It's my fault. Depleto squad going from a more typical route. I mean, they're at that 84%, which means they're going to be doing the 2 trash packs, the one by the bridge and the one right after the 2 Berserkers as well. And then they should have enough trash just to finish off the trash count with Shadow of Zul. And I mean, really, they're still behind in trash. They still have a lot of work to do, but they're probably going to get cooldown and get halfway through Xenazal before Igloo even gets to res his group. So, like you mentioned, ball's in their court. They got a lot of time to work with here. We'll end it there.
The one silver lining, or one of the silver linings at least for 40k here, is that both of their shrouds are back up, so they don't have to do some kind of funky thing to get back to their spot. They commit one of their shrouds here, they get back to the double Berserker pack, as you can see on the left side of the screen there. No, actually, they don't even need to worry about the shroud right now, because we just have the Druid stealth in. Now, why he doesn't stealth past the remaining 2, I'm not sure. I mean, at this point, do you think it would be worth the risk of doing the mass res there and then going through? Oh, that's why he didn't. Oh. He's not a stealthy enough boy to actually get through. So Igloo goes down and has to run the entirety of the dungeon again. I really would have thought he would have been able to get through. I thought those were far enough apart, but I suppose not. So at this point, I don't know. Maybe they should consider resing one of the rogues with him because they have both of their mass shrouds available, and then that would allow at least full safety of the Druid to get through with a distract on one of the sides of the Berserkers. But I guess he's just going to try this one again. Or they're going to mass res up on the stairs and then do what they tried to do with the previous pull. But this is just, I mean, this is a good 2 minutes lost again here.
Oh, I mean, it's probably more. This is a ridiculous amount of time lost for 40k here. I mean, this is worst case scenario. This is like, you know, everything's been going great in the dungeon at this point. A couple deaths here and there, and then, I mean, this happening is, this is really rough for them. I mean, you got to keep team morale high, but I mean, I don't really know what you do at this point in this dungeon. Like, you kind of have to hope for the Depleto squad to wipe at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
It's not.
Certainly, they've already had a wipe. They have a bit of inconsistency on the main screen here as well for Depleto squad, but Zanazal has fallen here for them, and they are getting ready to start on Atal'Dazar, the final boss of this 3-boss encounter right here. Of course, you deal with each one of them at one at a time. We all know that one of the empowered abilities of the previous boss's slain will occur occasionally on the group. Shouldn't be any problem for this team right now. Hopefully shouldn't be any problem for this team right now as the first barrel through goes through. Now, they are fortunate enough to have a Brewmaster here, so debilitating backhand should not connect. You usually have enough dodge, and indeed it doesn't, allowing the boss to be stably left here and just fully DPS by the group. No concern of, needing to kite around and make sure you don't get trucked in the face. Likely going to see a Vanish coming out of here for Nereus in just a moment in order to reset, and there it is, in order to reset the barrel through, allowing them to just have more time bought for there. But finally, Igloo does manage to get through, back onto the boss platform, reses the group, and once again, Fourty is good to go a few minutes later.
Yeah, but in that time frame, Depleto squad has gotten to the boss, pulled the boss, and pretty much killed the boss before they've even had the chance to re-engage the boss. I mean, this is a disaster for them. Depleto squad, I mean, okay, they're kind of at the same point in the dungeon now. Depleto squad still has 2 trash packs left to deal with on Fortified, which I would say is maybe a little bit less than the entire council boss that 40k has to deal with. But 40k still has to deal with that Berserker with the first boss. This is not an easy pull. That bleed does a massive amount of damage, and I believe the only people that can remove it for them are the rogues. Those are the only dwarves in the group. So, nope. I mean, they're both dwarves. Okay. So they can try to eat the bleeds for their tank if the Berserker jumps, but that's still pretty difficult to do, and they have to make sure it goes on them. And on top of that, they still have to deal with a Severing Blade from the boss as well. Like, this is just dangerous.
I mean, I don't really know. This is the worst case scenario, right? Igloo got the Sever Axe from the boss, can't control that. Lae'zel got the bleed from the Berserker instead of the tank or one of the 2 rogues. Closest proximity, tank was not in melee range of the Berserker. Rentari likely had to move away once one of those whirlwinds went out. Finally, Rentari got the bleed debuff there. Bursting has gone out, meaning they have killed the Berserker. I mean, that's scary. Igloo was quite close to dying there. He procced his Undulating Tides because of the Sever Axe. Nothing he can do about that, but on top of it, to have the extra stress of the bleed from the Berserker is just nuts. Hopefully, they managed to get through the rest of this boss unscathed, because they did manage to finish it off. You could see the paralysis on the second Berserker at the doorway. Need to keep an eye on that and make sure it doesn't break out and run amok right now. Depleto squad dealing with their last trash pull before needing to get onto the Shadow of Zul, and we saw the respect coming for Shadow of Zul earlier in the series in King's Res Zyro, just how much damage it does in this fortified environment. I mean, Divine Field opted to just get the heck away from it. He went down there, he just pieced right out. So we're going to see if these guys try to face tank it. Warrior, not exactly the tank you think about in terms of sitting there and eating sustained, non-reflectable magic damage to the face.
Oh, I mean, but monks are pretty good at it. I mean, that's what I saw on Ashara. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we won't see Red say no and walk away like Divine Field did, but we'll have to see here. But I think they're pretty. I mean, you're the tank expert. I'm not really a tank expert, but I'd imagine that the monk is significantly tankier towards Shadows.
Beefier, yeah. I mean, they have basically 1/3 or 35% efficacy on their stagger for magic damage. So it'll still translate a fair portion of it into stagger damage that they can then purify off. So it should be certainly much more stable than the warrior, but they're still going to need a lot of babysitting. A Blade of Shielding is already proc there for Radsbear. Won't be able again for 30 seconds. Little known fact: Shadow of Zul actually does melee between his casts, but for very minor amounts. The predominant damage here is indeed magic damage. Like 95% of the damage is shadow damage. So Rad's having that Blade of Shielding comes somewhat into play here is why I mentioned that. But it looks like he's just going to face tank it entirely. The boss is already at 33%, much more stable than we've usually seen with the Prot Warriors here.
Oh, I mean, the amount of times I've seen a Prot Warrior die in the last 10% of Shadow of Zul is probably more than any of the other deaths on this mini-boss. So we'll have to see if he can keep that tankiness all the way through. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't go down here. And because I've said that, he's probably going to die now. So, but they do have 3 battle reses for him, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. They should be able to just battle res him right up whenever that happens, because it's bound to at this point, and then they can move on to Atal'Dazar with their Bloodlust ready and active.
This is actually a really smart play. Rad's got just slightly out of melee range of the boss, which I mentioned does melee occasionally, and then he popped his Zen Meditation on the side, which is a 60% DR against all magic types. It is interrupted by melee, but by getting out of the melee range, and Shadow of Zul sits there spam casting, he was able to just easily deal with the evil 10%, as you mentioned, for Shadow of Zul, putting them in a position where, of course, they are at 100% trash. We don't know that's just a bug with Shadow of Zul, so they have completed the trash count that they need, and King Dazar is now at 92%. Not looking so hot for 40k right now, Zyro.
Yeah, 40k, I mean, you have to look at the ramifications for what happens here for them. They are leaving the door wide open for No Girls Allowed and Pain for Fem to have a chance of making up a lot of ground towards BlizzCon points here. I mean, right now, if they go down here, they're already, I mean, both teams are already 30 points ahead of Fourty in this particular cup. And that means no Girls Allowed only has to make up 100 more in the next 2 cups in order to, snatch that 4th seed away from Fourty. I mean, this is not how you want to be playing it for Fourty, and you kind of have to look at how you played this tournament and think about what you need to do better in the next cup so that you are able to still maintain that 4th seed for BlizzCon.
Yeah, they're certainly not out of it completely. I mean, Lizelle going down right now, as I mentioned, that a bit of disaster striking here yet again for Fourty. 9 deaths on the board. Battle Res immediately used for Igloo on the side of Fourty. But as I was saying, they're not completely out of it, even if they just get bottom spot here in this tournament. It's going to be certainly a tall task for Pain for Fem or No Girls Allowed to win this cup. So I mean, they're gonna have to perform to a stellar level next cup.
Well, the absolute minimum that No Girls Allowed has to get in order to overtake Fourty for points, they have to get 3rd place in one of the cups and 4th place in one of the cups, and have Fourty finish last place in both cups. That's the absolute minimum. Should Fourty move up to the 5th, 6th slot, or even get 3rd or 4th in one of the tournaments, no Girls Allowed is going to have to probably win or get 2nd place in one of the tournaments in order to overtake them. So it's not a done deal because they get last place in this particular cup, but it's kind of opening the door for them to have a better chance moving further on.
Right, Jarzar, and in fact, Fourty understood and respected the danger of Shadow of Azul, especially on a warrior tank and bloodlusted. Shadow of Azul is something that Depleto squad ended up using on King Dazar, who is now at 29% on the board for them. There's absolutely there's likely no way that Depleto squad is winning this one.
There's absolutely no way they're going to wipe at this point.
They've already dealt with the hardest part of the fight, which was King Dazar mounting Salah the Raptor at 60%, while Raban, the other Raptor, is just cleaving around wildly. All the fear phase is done. Dazar has already done his easy version of the trap clockwise, and it looks like, indeed, that is exactly what's going to happen. Way too little, way too late. I mean, Fourty just completely threw this. I'm sure Tettles had a good look at what's going on and what went wrong in this dungeon, as we did here on the monitor. But Depleto squad finishing off King Dazar and sweeping the series from right under Fourty's feet.